Chapter 121. The Demon's Paradise, the Female Hero's Graveyard. After purging the demons, came the more laborious task of searching the bodies. The banquet hall was almost completely destroyed. When Duan-Yun first mastered Love Unlimited, he blew up the top of the graveyard mountain. Only part of this banquet hall, carved from within the cave, had collapsed, thanks only to Duan-Yun using merely half his strength and its own sufficient sturdiness. But at a glance, large and small cracks were a shocking sight, the entire mountain seeming like shattered porcelain, liable to break at the slightest touch. Just moments ago, those who could flee this place did so, and those who could not perished in the violent aftermath. It is unknown whether those onlookers, who died trying to catch a glimpse of the expert's duel, felt regret before or after death. The death energy from the freshly dead continuously gathered towards Duan-Yun, making the Dharma image of Jade Sword immortal more and more refined and lifelike. After searching for a while, Duan-Yun finally found a golden sword that looked very valuable, and a warped nine-toothed rake. Though a novice in the martial world, he knew these two weapons should be the most valuable. When Duan-Yun emerged from the meeting hall, the entire Zhu Yen manor had become deserted. Upon his arrival, his indiscriminate killing had already terrified many. Had not the Zhu family's strict rules and ruthless methods been in place, probably more than half would have fled. Since the manor master had said he wanted to torture old demon Duan into inhumanity, and everyone had already heard about old demon Duan. The more they heard, the more bizarre it sounded, until old demon Duan himself descended. The nightmare became reality. After the news spread that the manor master and his lady were tortured and killed by old demon Duan, who here would dare stay? After all, not everyone is a bloodthirsty spectator. The grand estate became eerily empty, leaving behind only corpses. Even as Duan-Yun was clearing the battlefield in the manor, he would occasionally startle himself. The manor, devoid of people and with bodies strewn about randomly, was quite terrifying with the winds rustling through the trees. That he had caused this terror himself did not prevent Duan-Yun from being scared. After all, fear is innate, especially when he saw a body folded in half, with its head sticking out from the groin area and hanging from a tree as if watching him. Duan-Yun's scalp tingled for a moment. He probably caused this as well, but it was too chaotic at the time for him to remember how. As Duan-Yun searched through Zhu Yen Manor, he found that many places had been ransacked. The scene was like monkeys scattering when a tree falls. This was what Demon Zhu deserved, but it was somewhat inconvenient for Duan-Yun. Not to mention travel expenses, just the cost of gathering information alone was a considerable sum of money. With more looting here, the young hero, would acquire less. Alas, it can be seen that old Demon Zhu's so-called female hero wives, the Zhu family people, all turned tail and fled at the first sign of trouble, ungrateful and treacherous, certainly not good folk. None even had the foresight to leave a little more for this young hero. If he ever encountered them in the martial world, he would have to slaughter them all. As dusk approached, Duan-Yun entered the sleeping quarters of Zhu Haimian. The term sleeping quarters was used because the place where this guy slept was truly massive, with a beautifully cultivated garden of flowers and bamboos, not much different from a palace. But this place had clearly been looted as well, so Duan-Yun stood in the room feeling its vast emptiness. A once splendid palace had suddenly become a cold and desolate space, with only a large bed and a thin blanket left. Not even a pillow remained. At this time, even a person as composed as young hero Duan truly got a little angry. Damn it! They really didn't leave a single hair behind. With a golden sword in hand, he swept his sword chi across the room. The walls shattered, and even the fireplace used for winter warmth was cleaved open. Duan-Yun sighed and was about to go elsewhere when he suddenly noticed a hole in the fireplace, cut open by his sword chi, and felt a soft current of yin air emanating from it. The hole was pitch dark, with stone steps leading downward. Holy shit! A hidden chamber, the standard plot of martial heroes' novels. Duan-Yun's extinguished hope was suddenly rekindled. He stooped to pass through, noticing the precise structure that had been sliced open by his sword chi. It was clear that this was the standard procedure for opening a secret chamber. Because it was off the beaten path, the entrance was small, and Duan Yun forcefully enlarged the opening with his sword before stooping inside to descend further. Down the steps into darkness, uncertain where they would lead. Bloodstains faintly marked the tunnel walls, which looked chilling. Duan Yun reached into his arms, picked out the fire stick essential for all Jianghu people, and directly lit it. The flame illuminated the path ahead. It was a relatively narrow stone passage, and Duan Yun walked deeper. Along the way, oddly sized holes appeared on both sides of the pathway. Upon closer inspection, Duan Yun's hair stood on end. To the left, standing in a pit, was a woman in a red dress, holding a water needle as if ready to strike. But ultimately, she did not attack. The fire stick's light reflected off her pale and delicate skin, but her eyes were hollow, devoid of breath or heartbeat. She was long dead, yet stood there as if still alive. Duan Yun continued deeper, feeling a growing eeriness. In the wall hollows on both sides of the tunnel, the bodies of women appeared one after another, some even with plaques. Mou from Chenqing Mountain. Chun Qian, the female hero from Green Road. Li Yun from Floating Willow Mountain. Though they had passed away long ago, their appearances remained vivid. This reminded Duan Yun of the specimens in the exhibition hall. Yes, all these women were specimens. Looking at the women, who were displayed on the cave walls like deities, Duan Yun couldn't help but feel his skin crawl. These women were likely the female warriors who had once traversed the martial world. Zhu Haimian had a penchant for female warriors and had taken quite a few as wives. These female warriors, like Chen Ying and others who complied with him, ended up becoming his wives. However, there were those who did not submit and were thereby harmed by him and turned into specimens displayed here. This place was a secret chamber beneath Zhu Haimian's sleeping quarters, his playground, yet a graveyard for the female warriors. This pig was truly too evil. It was also because he, a righteous young hero, traveled through time too late and started his journey too late. Otherwise there would have been fewer victimized female warriors. Watching them, seemingly dead yet standing upright like living beings here, Duan Yun felt a twinge of regret. In the end, these defiant female warriors who preferred death to submission were also his kindred spirits. No wonder the number of young heroes, female heroes, and great heroes in the martial world was dwindling. They were all harmed by these mad and crazed demons. At this moment, Duan Yun had climbed up a cave wall and removed the golden hairpin and golden anklet from one of the female warriors. Demon Zhu was perverted, turning them into specimens and adorning them in gold and jade, dressing them up to his liking. Duan Yun removed these burdensome adornments from the female warriors, realizing a sizable pile had accumulated. He placed them aside on the path and continued inward. The light from the fire stick flickered. The passage lined with female warrior specimens had come to an end. Beyond that was a cave-like secret chamber. In the center of the chamber stood a statue. Clothed, it looked like a handsome scholar, but when you gazed into its eyes, it appeared to be a pig demon. While in human form, gazing into the eyes of the statue made it seem like a ferocious pig demon. Duan Yun couldn't suppress a sense of eeriness welling up within him. He wondered if Zhu Haimian aspired to cultivate into such a being. In front of the statue were remnants of incense and candles. Clearly, Zhu Haimian worshipped it. Duan Yun continued inward to see if there were other valuables. Having unshackled the female warriors lifted his spirits significantly. Demon Zhu's secret chamber was a place of horror and diabolical taste. His remaining wives might have known about this place but, perhaps due to time or fear, had not ransacked it. The secret chamber was not large, and soon Duan Yun reached the end, confronted by a vibrantly colored mural. The mural depicted Demon Zhu's ancestors stumbling upon a mysterious mountain villa in the mountains. Within the villa stood a statue that was neither human nor pig. Like the one behind him, the Zhu family began to worship the statue and cultivated the techniques found in the villa. Afterward, a creepy scene emerged. The mural depicted, at intervals, Zhu family members who had made progress in their cultivation departing from the mysterious villa. Though these individuals varied in size, gender, and attire, they all shared one striking similarity: their faces. Each person had a face that was neither human nor pig, akin to the statue they worshipped. At this instant, Duan Yun's body was covered in goosebumps. Could this be the secret behind Zhu Wumian's cultivation? Suddenly, he felt the statue behind him was not an inanimate object but a living, wicked being. Out of the corner of his eye, Duan Yun's sharp gaze noticed a small hole on the mural. An inconspicuous hole, yet Duan Yun had spotted it. Did it look like a keyhole? Was there another secret chamber behind this, harboring even deeper treasures and secrets of Demon Zhu? For a while, he couldn't find the key. But young hero Duan hadn't used any key to enter this secret chamber. In the next instant, breaking body sword energy overflowed from his fingertips. The sword energy, fused with death energy, pierced into the small hole. To find out if there was a secret chamber, all he needed to do was completely cut open this cave wall. With a flick of Duan Yun's finger, the tiny hole and the stone wall connected above it were instantly severed. But in the next moment, there was a loud bang, and flames were ejected, prompting Duan Yun to hastily dodge. In an instant, the entire cave wall burst into flames. Demon Zhu. F***CK your mother. Duan Yun was surrounded by breaking body sword energy, warding off the flames. Evidently, he had triggered a trap, and this place was about to become a sea of fire. Demon Zhu was truly devious, unwilling to let this young hero acquire more of his treasures and secrets even in death. The flames were mixed with thick black smoke as Duan Yun retreated. Before leaving, he raised his hand, and the breaking body sword energy buzzed forth, shattering the statue's body to pieces. Afterward, he reached the corridor and used the Beiming divine skill to suction the jewels he had removed from the female warriors onto his person. Finally, as smoke billowed and flames spread, Duan Yun eyed the fire and hastily took the jewels from the remaining female warriors. With a loud bang, Duan Yun was nearly blasted out. His clothes, trousers, and boots were already burnt through, and half of his leg hair was scorched off. A substantial loss indeed. However, beholding the pile of jewels stuck to his body, he was still quite pleased. Not too shabby a loss. Amidst the surging flames, the female warriors turned into specimens and were completely ignited, finally liberated. And in the depths of the secret chamber, the flames raged even fiercer as the shattered statue toppled into the inferno. Appearing to blink an eye. Chapter 122. Younger siblings come first. Monkey Face and Chicken arrived at Zhu Yen Manor with a growing sense of unease. It was too quiet. They knew that Zhu Xiang always liked to put on a grand display. It made no sense that there was no one to greet them. Following Duan Yun's trail, Monkey Face and Chicken had become increasingly alarmed. On their way, they heard a storyteller spreading new rumors about old Demon Duan. Things like how he completely humiliated the fairies of Red House and the young masters of Tang Sect, obliterating Red House's stronghold where dozens resided. When the two of them reached the base of Red House, indeed not a chicken or dog was spared. Not even 2 whole corpses were found. The women of Red House were all chopped up into pieces. With their abilities, catching a fairy from Red House for fun was not difficult. But the brute force of old Demon Duan's cruelty, reducing people to urine and then to pieces, was very crude. In the eyes of demons who enjoyed pecking people's necks and sipping on brain juice, it had no technical merit but gave off a sense of perverse cruelty. The closer they got to Zhu Haimian's villa, the more they anticipated Duan Yun's intentions. Did old Demon Duan rush thousands of miles to directly massacre Old Pig's entire clan? What the hell was this guy made of? Monkey Face and Chicken had always believed, among the remaining members of the 12 star signs, any one of them could go neck and neck with old Demon Duan. Especially from an ambush, they had the advantage. Monkey Face was even looking forward to drinking old Demon Duan's brain tofu. For old Demon Duan to storm into Old Pig's territory and kill, it looked like a dead-end trap. At least on his own turf, Old Pig wouldn't suffer a loss. But, listening to the quietness inside, like that of Chicken's, Monkey Face and Chicken felt something was amiss. Today, behind the walls of the villa, their hearts were sinking. There were corpses all along the way, clearly the handiwork of old Demon Duan. When they reached what looked like a guest hall about to collapse at any moment, they were utterly terrified. This was the disturbance caused by the clash between old Demon Duan and Old Pig. Having been brothers for many years, they knew the extent of Zhu Haimian's abilities. Born with divine strength, wielding a nine-tooth rake, he was as powerful as thousands of troops. Had they faced him head-on, the two of them would be no match, and it was this confidence that let Zhu Haimian brazenly declare that he would torture old Demon Duan. They didn't believe that old Demon Duan could defeat Zhu Haimian face-to-face, let alone on his own turf. Zhu Haimian thought so too, but alas, he was dead. Before dying, he still firmly believed that amidst the music that belonged to him, he was the invincible pig god. Among the ruins, Chicken Ji Sikhen quickly broke through a rock formation and found a survivor, the bloodthirsty musician who played the swona, blowing almost to the point of making 7 orifices bleed. In the martial world, the bleeding of 7 orifices is often associated with death, as if it indicates that one is dead. But in reality, bleeding is bleeding, and death is death. Seeing Monkey Face and Chicken, the musician immediately recognized them. 2 masters the family head has lost, and even the second lady has been tortured and killed by old Demon Duan. Second lady was shaved into a human stick. The family head wanted to die together with her, but old Demon Duan forcibly separated them, said the blood-spattered musician while coughing up blood. Hearing this, Monkey Face and Chicken were furious. The 12 star signs, each a devil in their own right, 6 of them were already dead. Apart from Tiger Phase and Dog Phase who died in martial madness, the rest died in a blaze of glory. But Zhu Xiang's death was the most miserable of all. Old Demon Duan, you bloody genius! I've been playing for the family head all my life, never imagined he would be defeated so miserably, nor seen a more cruel and perverse devil than old Demon Duan. The musician lamented. Chicken pressed 2 acupoints to stop the bleeding and said, Oldly, take your time to tell us how old Demon Duan defeated your family head. Thus, the blood-spattered musician Oldly went over in detail how Duan Yun humiliated the second lady, disfigured her, and how old Demon Duan humiliated Zhu Haimian before killing him. After listening, Monkey Face and Chicken fell silent. It was too tragic. Zhu, you had such a cruel death. At that moment, Monkey Face suddenly asked, And the old demon? What's his condition? The blood-spattered musician replied, Old demon is injured, certainly seriously injured. Masters, you must seize the opportunity to avenge our family head. Vengeance! Revenge! Uttering these words, he fumbles on the ground with his bloodied, mangled hand, grasping the blood-stained swona. Blowing into it, he breathes his last breath. Before dying, he clenched the hand of Monkey Face, signaling him to avenge their master. Monkey Face shook off the musician's hand, his gaze peculiar as he said, Do you really think old Demon Duan has been seriously injured? Chicken pondered. With old Pig's skills, it should be so. But later on, particularly after finding the ruins of Zhu Haimian's bedroom, they both fell silent. The marks on that wall were unmistakably caused by old Demon Duan's sword. Would a seriously injured person have the leisure and mood to come here in search of treasure? They could imagine that after ruthlessly killing their brothers and their lady, old Demon Duan touched their corpses, still insatiable, and then went to their bedroom. In there, he slashed at the walls with sword chi like money meant nothing, eventually discovering the secret chamber behind the fireplace. Taking the treasure with him, saying such a person is gravely injured, might as well say he's experiencing a miraculous rally before death. At that moment, Chicken finally voiced his doubts. This finger technique that scared the little sister senseless, why does it sound like your finger strength? Monkey Face was also frustrated. This isn't like my maternal uncle's finger strength. Though it's flirtatious, it's not this obscene. But according to old Lee's description, that finger strength that was cast while displaying elegant movement techniques did somewhat resemble it. Chicken frowned. Could it be that old Demon Duan messed up his practice and as a result, developed this obscene finger technique? Monkey Face said irritably, "Listen to yourself? Doesn't that sound crazy? The finger strength is already extremely dangerous. Having only half the book could turn one's brain to mush, and if it got messed up in practice, who knows what dangers would arise." Chicken said, "But the fact is, old Demon Duan only recently started to use this obscene finger technique. Previously, there were no rumors of him first making people wet themselves before killing them brutally." Monkey Face, though reluctant to admit, knew this was the most logical conjecture. He shivered involuntarily. Then this old Demon Duan is too sinister, right? Looking at the mountain villa, as still as a grave, both felt an eerie and strange atmosphere, even a faint fear. Although neither said it, deep down they were both slowly coming to accept that old Demon Duan was stronger than them. Stronger by a notch, not something they could handle alone. Yeah, even if they joined forces, what once seemed a sure victory was now uncertain. Old Demon Duan was even more sinister and terrifying than they imagined. At the same time, they also had to embarrassingly admit that Monkey's bait with the secret book had instead caused harm to Brother Zhu and Little Sister. Chicken's chicken crown swelled a few times, murmuring, "Have we, as demon brothers, ever encountered such a bizarre monster?" Monkey nodded. "First time. What do we do now?" asked Chicken. "Take advantage of old Demon Duan's serious injury and claim his life?" Monkey attempted to suggest. "But is he really injured?" Chicken pondered. "I don't know." Monkey shook his head. "Then do we still go after him?" Monkey continued. "If you go, I'll follow. I think I'll wait a bit." Monkey scratched his head. "Wait for what?" "My brother Zhu is gone, but his family remains out there. I want to find them and take good care of them." Ji Sikhen looked at Monkey Wuya with surprise in his eyes. "You are really good to your brothers. I can't stand to see little sister suffer. If you die one day, I'll take care of yours too." Ji Sichen's gaze went blank. "I worry about having my women cared for by you, hence I've never married." "Have you lived all your life without a woman?" "None, for if I did, then I'd have a weakness." "Then this chicken has missed out on quite a lot of fun." "I'd rather miss out on the fun than have one more weakness," Ji Sikhen replied. By then, Monkey Wuya had his hand on his shoulder. "Don't worry, little sister won't become your weakness. On the contrary, she could bring a lot of fun." Ji Sikhen asked, "So we're not going after old Demon Duan? We need to wait for the right moment?" "What moment?" "The moment for a decisive strike. We need to stay hidden. Old Demon Duan has a habit of practicing. If finger strength doesn't work, we'll try something else. I refuse to believe old Demon Duan can stay lucky forever. Right, as long as he keeps practicing, he'll eventually be killed by his evil skill," Ji Sikhen pondered. "Besides, he has offended more and more people. He's sure to be attacked again. We can seize the moment when he's weak for a decisive strike." "That's what I think too." "All right, let's go find little sister first, right? It's not that we don't want to fight old Demon Duan to death, but rather we are too righteous. Our brother is dead. The surviving little sister must not suffer anymore." With that, a chicken and monkey headed out. Chapter 123. A fairy who doesn't want to fight the old demon is not a good fairy. 2 days later, Duan Yun rode a well-built large panda on the road, leisurely and carefree. Behind him, Little Gray carried the slightly heavy luggage, looking somewhat confused. Duan Yun sat on the panda's back, on a saddle woven from bamboo, which was not luxurious but sufficient. Because the panda had smooth fur, riding it was more stylish and comfortable than riding a donkey. This panda was rented, the most expensive one available from the Mei family. Not only could it easily fulfill the duties of a mount, but it was also said that in case of encountering bandits, it could use several savage charges to protect its master and break out of encirclements. On top of that, it could provide entertainment like rolling into a ball and acting cute for emotional value. Renting it for a month cost 70 taels of silver, and the deposit of 1,000 taels was certainly not cheap, especially for Duan Yun before setting off. But for Duan Yun after acting for justice, it wasn't expensive. Having acquired some unrighteous wealth from Zhu Yan Manor, Duan Yun had never been this wealthy. Accustomed to poverty, he even felt somewhat uncomfortable being rich. Had he not known that pandas easily get sick outside of the boundaries of State and lacked their diet of bamboo, he might have easily bought 2 such pandas. Duan Yun sat on the panda's back, holding the golden sword in his hand. Over the past 2 days, he discovered that this golden sword was extraordinary. Whether in craftsmanship or assassination effect, it far surpassed his newly forged precious sword. It could only be said that the second lady, truly a direct daughter of the Huangshan sword sect, lived well. Fortunately, this precious sword was now in his hands, finding a good home. Otherwise, he would have carried the infamy of wielding the madwoman's sword for life. However, what troubled Duan Yun was that although he had cleaned the sword, he still felt a lingering smell of urine, whether it was psychological or not. From his professional gynecologist perspective, the moment he saw the second lady, he noticed her excessive liver fire and bad temper, fearing her urine might be yellow and foul-smelling, but he didn't expect it to this extent. It seemed only future herbal washing could completely remove this odor. So he put away the sword and continued on his journey. This time, Duan Yun planned to go to State to have a hot pot meal. Not riding a panda or eating a local hot pot in State would mean coming here in vain. Duan Yun also followed the custom. On a steep cliff shrouded in mist, the cliff, sharp as if sliced by a knife, was covered in slippery moss, and even the most skilled climbers like apes couldn't handle it. A lonely tree grew on the cliff, with a woman hanging from it alone. The woman had a deep wound in her abdomen, looking pale, yet she was still alive. Yu Shuang showed a pained expression on her face as she woke from unconsciousness. Is this hell? Initially, her face was filled with confusion and fear, but gradually, Yu Shuang realized she was not dead yet. She, a fairy, had not descended into hell. She couldn't understand why, after being blasted off the cliff by old demon Duan, she was still alive. A moment later, she moved her body slightly and found that it was the tree that saved her. Thinking that she was still alive, and thinking of old demon Duan, she felt fear, but her breathing also became rapid, and her eyes gradually filled with excitement, because she thought of seduction. Seduce old demon Duan. Vigorously seduce, because the old demon Duan impersonating a young hero was really too handsome and perfect. She was nearly entranced at a glance. Yes, the moment she entered the restaurant on the cliff of Qingshan, when the other sisters were focused on young master of Tang family, she was attracted by the young man lying under the table. Red House training includes a stage called Forget Love Barrier, which also refers to forgetting emotions and blending with a man until reaching a whole new realm. Yu Shuang for all these years had never broken through this stage. Because she was picky, a person who found it hard to deceive herself. For her to blend into forgetfulness, it must be a man she extremely liked, someone who could hook her desire uncontrollably. She had been searching for many years and never found such a man. She thought it would be difficult to find one in her lifetime. Until that day at the restaurant on Qingshan Cliff, she met that man. The first time she saw him, every inch of her skin couldn't help but feel excited. This was the man she was looking for, the man she wanted to seduce passionately. It felt as if a dream had invaded reality, and in that moment Yu Shuang was so excited that she clenched her legs together, wishing she could fly over to him immediately. But later, she found out that the man was old demon Duan, the one with a blood feud with her sect, Red House, the formidable old demon Duan that even fairies like her feared greatly. Then, she and her sisters were magnanimously defeated by him, and she was knocked down the cliff with a thrust of his sword finger. Even as she fell off the cliff, his magnificent and valiant image remained in her eyes. And she, a fairy like this, was destined for hell. If there was any regret in this life, it was that she hadn't properly seduced old demon Duan yet. She wanted to seduce him, to ruthlessly seduce, to ardently seduce, to ascend to the heavens with him. Perhaps the Queen Mother in heaven heard her innermost desires, or perhaps her passionate seduction moved the heavens. Miraculously, she survived in this manner. To survive meant there was hope. To seduce old demon Duan, young hero Duan, whether it's Mr. Duan or Duan Lang, was her hope. Compared to young hero Duan, her strength was trivial, like comparing a firefly to the bright moon. Her wanting to seduce him was like a moth darting into a flame. But a fairy who didn't want to seduce the old demon surely wasn't a good fairy. Her existence was for the purpose of seducing him. Yu Shuangshuang regulated her breathing because she knew that although she was still alive, there was still a long way to survive. Her injuries were severe, and the cliff was too high and too slippery both above and below. Previously, she could have used Red House's unique movement technique to fly up in one go before she was injured. But now she was injured, severely injured. Under the wild tree that saved her life, there was a protruding stone platform. From here, she could faintly see a cave behind the stone platform. If she could land on the stone platform and find some food and water in the cave, she might have a chance to survive. But in her current state of excruciating pain and overwhelming weakness, even reaching the stone platform was difficult and dangerous. Yet, thinking of Duan Yun, and recalling his handsome face and the temperament that seemed gentle but was actually brutal when fighting, Yu Shuangshuang suddenly filled with courage. She leaned her body to the side and, with all her strength, swung to the left and fell downwards. The cliff wind was piercing, fluttering her blood-soaked, thin clothes, pulling at her painful wounds. As she fell, Yu Shuangshuang realized, whether due to the wind or her own lack of strength, she was just a bit off from her estimate. Seeing she was about to crash past the stone platform, Yu Shuangshuang gritted her teeth and stretched out her right hand fiercely to the side. There was a clattering of falling rocks. In the nick of time, Yu Shuangshuang caught the edge of the stone platform. Her entire body dangled in the cliff wind, like a kite with its string cut. Yu Shuangshuang felt intense pain, as if her body was being forcibly torn apart and then crushed. At the same time, she felt extremely exhausted, as if every piece of flesh in her body had lost its strength. But there was a light in her eyes. Thinking of old demon Duan's appearance, she realized she couldn't die. With veins bulging on her forehead and fresh blood continuously flowing from the wound on her abdomen, Yu Shuangshuang actually managed to stagger onto the stone platform. Huff! Huff! She lay on the stone platform, gasping for breath. She wanted to sleep, but still forced her eyes open, because she knew if she fell asleep now, she might never wake up. If she didn't wake up, she couldn't meet old demon Duan again, so she struggled, crawling towards that cave entrance. The pitch-black entrance, like the mouth of a monster ready to devour someone. But Yu Shuangshuang couldn't worry about that. The moment she entered the cave, she felt darkness envelop her. Yet there was a hint of dampness. Maybe there was water. In the darkness, her vision blurred as she tried hard to climb further inside. Ahead, a crack like a mountain split appeared, and unexpectedly, a waft of fruit aroma drifted in. Yes, a fruity scent. Despite her body being covered in the smell of blood and urine, she still could smell that strange fruit aroma. It meant there must be delicious fruits inside. As long as she could eat the fruits, she could live. Yu Shuangshuang struggled towards the crevice. The crack was narrow, only passable by sidling through, and the protruding rocks scraped against her body, causing intense pain. Yet, smelling that fruit scent, she no longer felt the pain. Just as she was about to pass through the crack, the scent of the fruit becoming ever stronger, Yu Shuangshuang suddenly stopped. A chilling sensation abruptly erupted, as if goosebumps spread across her entire body. She saw a pair of eyes. Outside the crevice, a pair of eyes were staring at her. Very bright. She wasn't even sure if they were human. In Yu State, there was always a saying that in the deep mountains and forests, one should not easily converse with strangers, because some might be demons from the woods transformed, who could deceive you and eat you. Could it be that inside here was a mountain demon? Chapter 124. Reverse Heaven Gang Skills. At the end of the narrow mountain crevice, that bright pair of eyes stared at herself. Yu Shuangshuang felt a shiver down her spine. In that moment, she dared not move. That thing was looking at her as if waiting for her to enter and be consumed. Why haven't you come in yet? At this time, the owner of the eyes suddenly made this sound. It was a woman's voice, sounding very young, yet the tone resembled that of an old crone, making it particularly strange. Such characteristics truly resembled the rumored man-eating demon of the mountains. "If you don't come in, you'll probably die," the creature inside continued. At this time, Yu Shuangshuang came to her senses. Did she have any way out? She was severely injured now, and if she didn't eat something, she would eventually die here. She couldn't die. Thinking of that handsome face, of those brilliant and awe-inspiring tactics that frighten people, Yu Shuangshuang instantly filled with resolve. Yes, she couldn't die. She had to go in. She needed to live. Even if there was a demon inside, if it dared to obstruct her from young hero Duan, she would even devour the demon. Yu Shuangshuang's eyes flashed with a hint of madness. She took a step forward, crossing the last line of defense, and arrived behind the mountain crevice. It was only then that she could clearly see that the owner of those eyes was a person. A very indescribable person. This person's eyes were very young, bright and clear, like those of a newborn baby. But her other features were old and wrinkled, with age spots amidst the wrinkles on her face, hiding countless years. The old crone with those eyes looked at Yu Shuangshuang and said, "Someone has come. Someone has finally come to this place." As she spoke, she tried to move closer, but it proved to be difficult. Yu Shuangshuang then noticed that her legs had severely atrophied, almost reduced to mere bones. At this moment, the fruity scent became even more intense. Yu Shuangshuang, driven by her intense hunger, looked deeper into the cave. There was a large tree. The trunk was half embedded in the rock wall and half outside. Branches wildly grew, lush with foliage. Enduring intense bodily pain, she approached it. Go eat, it's really delicious," the old crone said faintly. That voice was very light, echoing in the space like a ghostly whisper. Even without the strange old crone saying anything, she was going to eat. Only by eating could she survive. But the moment she stepped under the shade of the tree, Yu Shuangshuang was still startled. The branches indeed bore bright red fruits, and the intense fruity aroma was coming from them. But, why did these fruits look so much like people? Yes, those red fruits looked just like little infants with facial features, some with eyes open, some with eyes closed, some with smooth surfaces, and some full of wrinkles. Standing there, Yu Shuangshuang felt like she had fallen into some ghastly realm. What are these exactly? She couldn't help but ask. She reached out her hand, feeling like if she touched the fruit next to her, this infant would suddenly open its eyes and start crying.
Immortal fruit.
These are human infant immortal fruits. They are really tasty. The old crone spoke with a grin, giving off an insane, ill-intentioned vibe. Human infant immortal fruits? As a fairy of the Red House, she had heard of immortal fruits. The women in the Red House fervently practiced cultivation techniques, mingling with men in cultivation practices, all to someday return to the heavens and sip jade-scent nectar and eat nourishing immortal fruits. But she had never heard of human infant immortal fruits before. Looking at these fruits, they were truly horrifying. Eating them will save your life. I've been eating them for hundreds of years, the old crone said when she saw the hesitation. Hundreds of years? Yu Shuangshuang exclaimed in shock. Yes, how could I have lived for hundreds of years without these fruits? I can't even remember how old I am, but it's at least 500 years. The old crone, as if lost in memories, continued. At this moment, Yu Shuangshuang felt even more eerie. Over 500 years, even the mighty figures of the clouds above, the tower masters of the Red House who had pursued Fate Yin and absorbed countless men's vital essence, were known to be the longest lived, but their lifespan was only up to 263 years. In the Red House, fairies that couldn't achieve Fate Yin would descend into hell. It was the tribulation of the fairies, therefore the cultivation techniques and foods in the house could prolong their lifespan. The old crone nestled there. Aside from her bright and striking eyes, her entire appearance was hideous, like a decayed old demon. But at this moment, recalling the past, Yu Shuangshuang felt her entire demeanor change. It was as if she suddenly transformed into an unrivaled beauty, filled with enticing grace. This is the last human infant fruit tree on Earth. It might be hard to produce new fruits after this. Eat it and you'll have a long lifespan, the old crone said. Why are you telling me all of this? Yu Shuangshuang asked. This was the last human infant fruit tree, this was the last immortal fruit. If she ate it, the other party would be left with none. This was a simple truth. Because I'm about to die. Though the immortal fruit is extraordinary, after all, this is the mortal world, more than 500 years. This body has reached its limit, the old crone confessed. Such words, in the perilous martial world, Yu Shuangshuang would generally not believe. But now, she really had no other choice. And these fruits, horrific as blood infants, continued to emit a strong fruity aroma, tempting her. Thus, she no longer hesitated and picked the first fruit. This fruit had its eyes closed, its surface wrinkled, looking like an ugly old lady. Chapter 125. But this was the only fruit Yu Shuangshuang could pick under her severe injury. So she bit into it without hesitation. She didn't know if it was an illusion or something else. But the moment she bit into the fruit, she felt as if the fruit suddenly opened its eyes. The sensation was truly terrifying. Yet the taste of the fruit was undeniably delicious. Just as the old woman had said, it was incredibly tasty. As the bright red juice flowed down her throat, she felt as though she was floating on air, ready to soar into the heavens. The first one, the second one. Yu Shuangshuang ate 5 fruits in succession. And it wasn't until after the 5th that she abruptly awoke to the reality that she had eaten so much without realizing it. A miraculous scene unfolded. The abdominal wound that old demon Duan had pierced with his sword finger was rapidly healing, and the blood that had flowed out was replaced with a surge of vitality. She couldn't see herself, but her cheeks flushed with color. The feeling was indescribably wonderful. Yu Shuangshuang looked at the old woman and couldn't help saying, "Thank you, Senior." The old woman looked at her and said with a smile, "It is fate that we meet here." Yu Shuangshuang now saw hope for survival. Whether it was due to the fruits or something else, she felt incredibly excited and began to share some of her past with the old woman. "How did you come to be here?" the old woman asked. Yu Shuangshuang recounted her experience of being struck down the cliff by old demon Duan. Normally, she would have kept some secrets, but at this moment, she did not, and she didn't realize it. "So, you're a woman from the Red House. I've never heard of this old demon Duan. Right, people from my generation should all be gone," the old woman said. "And you, Senior? Why are you here?" Yu Shuangshuang asked. "I know some secrets of the human infant fruit tree, and have lingered here for years on account of these secrets." "You must be an extraordinary person," Yu Shuangshuang surmised. At that moment, a supremely graceful and elegant light shone in the old woman's bright eyes as she said faintly, "It's been so many years. I wonder if anyone still remembers the Mad Mountain Saber Emperor." Yu Shuangshuang exclaimed in surprise, "The Mad Mountain Saber Emperor, who battled the Murong family's ancestor on the banks of the Fan River? Time is a fearsome thing. No matter how brilliant and famous one is, they will eventually be forgotten as it passes. Only the truly exceptional manage to leave their mark through the long stretch of history. The Murong family's ancestor and the Mad Mountain Saber Emperor were such people. Even after hundreds of years, their names were still remembered in the martial world." Hearing this, the old woman's eyes brightened further as she said, "Unexpectedly, someone still knows of him. I am the wife of that sword madman. Senior is the Ice Phoenix Lung Fenghuang," Yu Shuangshuang said nervously. She never expected to meet such a legendary figure in this way. Mad Mountain Saber Emperor had once shaken the world, but his wife, Lung Fenghuang, was no less renowned than he was. Even such a man could not overshadow her brilliance, which was quite remarkable. Suddenly, Yu Shuangshuang looked down at her chest with a strange feeling, because she realized it had grown larger, considerably larger. The next moment, Yu Shuangshuang couldn't help but let out a strange cry, because her chi blood surged violently inside her body, inflating her like a balloon. "Senior, I..." At that moment, Lung Fenghuang laughed and said, "Don't worry, you just ate too much at once. 5 human infant immortal fruits in one go. You must have been very hungry. Senior, what should I do now? Yu Shuangshuang was still extremely agitated. But now she was also filled with a great deal of fear. Just looking from the outside, she had transformed from a light fairy of 100 or so pounds into one weighing at least 300 pounds, swelling as if about to float up and even burst. Come here, I just need to press a couple of your acupoints, said Leng Fenghuang. Yu Shuangshuang moved clumsily towards Leng Fenghuang. But in the next moment, she suddenly stopped. Overwhelmed with excitement, she suddenly realized something. If the senior had known that eating too much of the immortal fruit could have such dire consequences, why had she not warned her? That could only mean she intended harm. She should not have trusted someone so easily. But perhaps it was the fruit that made her mind overly excited, like being intoxicated, and she didn't think too much about it. At that time, she noticed Leng Fenghuang's face was dark and gloomy, like a malevolent spirit from hell. Come on over, said Leng Fenghuang.
No.
Yu Shuangshuang was scared and began retreating. At that moment, Leng Fenghuang struggled to crawl over to her. Yu Shuangshuang was terrified and quickly scrambled towards a gap in the rocks, but soon realized she was not just clumsy. Each step felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. More despairingly, she had grown too fat to fit through the narrow passageway that she had previously squeezed through. As Yu Shuangshuang strained to look back, Leng Fenghuang's face was alarmingly close. In the next instant, the face bumped into her protruding belly. A strange suction force suddenly emanated from Leng Fenghuang's head, and Yu Shuangshuang felt her vigorous qi blood and true qi start to converge towards Leng Fenghuang. This inflationary feeling lessened, but she felt herself consumed by a panic of being devoured.
No.
She struggled to push Leng Fenghuang away, but her body no longer obeyed her commands. Then, an even more bizarre scene unfolded. Leng Fenghuang's body started to float, sliding over hers, upside down. Quickly, they formed a position where Leng Fenghuang was inverted, with their heads connected. Chapter 126. Yu Shuangshuang felt her qi blood and martial power continuously pouring into the other person. No, she even felt her memories being devoured. So many years have passed, and my reverse heaven gang skills have finally come in handy, Leng Fenghuang said with a sinister laugh. As Yu Shuangshuang's memories became fuzzier and she began to forget everything, a tremendous sense of fear arose within her. No, she hadn't taken revenge yet. She wanted to take revenge. Revenge on old demon Duan. In the next moment, Leng Fenghuang's crazed expression momentarily froze as she noticed the absorption speed was slowing down. Don't resist. I will fulfill your last wish for you. I will take revenge on old demon Duan for you. Leng Fenghuang spoke.
No.
I want to take my own revenge, not by someone else. Yu Shuangshuang struggled, and the information about her vengeance became clearer in her mind. Fear suddenly flashed across Leng Fenghuang's face. Because she had moved, her body, which had been wildly sucking in an upside-down position, was slowly rotating, meaning that she who had initiated the reverse heaven gang skills was now being countered by the very same technique. It was a complete reversal. With a whoosh, the positions of the two head-connected individuals had switched. Yu Shuangshuang began to frantically drain Leng Fenghuang, blurring Leng Fenghuang's face completely. Leng Fenghuang struggled, trying to separate herself from the other, but found it impossible. Too tight. Only then did Leng Fenghuang realize in shock that her own body was too old compared to Yu Shuangshuang, who had just devoured 5 human infant immortal fruits. They were worlds apart. Thus, Leng Fenghuang's memories also began to blur. Her qi blood true qi, along with her memories, were being devoured by Yu Shuangshuang. Yu Shuangshuang, hanging upside down, stretched out a finger and tore a bloody hole. As she drained, she let out some of her swollen qi blood. Senior, you do have some good memories. Leng Fenghuang's face twisted as the last bit of vitality rapidly drained from it. In the next instant, she gave up resisting. Accordingly, another consciousness appeared in Yu Shuangshuang's sea of consciousness. I am Leng Fenghuang. The ice-cold phoenix of 3,000 li. That sword madman is a faithless lover. I must live longer than him and ensure his descendants meet a bad end. I must survive. Kill, kill, kill. Make the progeny of the sword madman die out. I still want to take revenge. Wait, why do I want to take revenge? Suddenly, Yu Shuang opened her mouth and exclaimed loudly, I want to take revenge on Duan Yun. I want to take revenge on old demon Duan. Revenge on young hero Duan. Mine. 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 I am Yu Shuang. I must take revenge. With a boom, an energy surge leaked from the junction of their heads, rippling like waves. The human infant fruit tree was shaking constantly, and the fruits on the tree seemed to wake up. With a thud, Yu Shuang's head sunk down, pressing Lung Fenghuang's head into her neck. Afterward, she dismounted from Lung Fenghuang's body. Her fingers were still spraying blood, and her whole body gradually became thinner, her eyes shining brightly like a newborn baby. She came to the human infant fruit tree, which now had only 4 fruits left, and said, Revenge! 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 Almost at the same time, Duan Yun was sitting in a wasteland, sneezing 4 times in a row. Little Gray and Panda Dabai, who were grazing and eating bamboo respectively, were startled and all looked at him. Duan Yun couldn't help but rub his nose, wistfully saying, Could it be that Shining and the Morong brothers miss me because I've been away from home for too long? Oh, good brothers and good little sister are really something. Chapter 127. Rescuing the troubled young hero Duan. At night, Duan Yun slept by the campfire. He should be able to sleep more soundly this time. Previously it was only him and Little Gray, and though the donkey was vigilant, letting a donkey stand watch was somewhat inadequate. But Panda Dabai was different. According to the Mei family, this panda of the highest nobility was also skilled at standing guard. Yet before Duan Yun fell asleep, he heard a snoring noise. He opened his eyes and saw that, lo and behold, the panda had fallen asleep before him, snoring quite loudly at that. But thinking about it, he could understand. The panda, having carried him day and night, was exceedingly tired. Not long after, he fell asleep as well. A donkey, a man, and a panda lay there, truly living the carefree life beneath the sky and upon the earth. In the dead of night, Duan Yun was suddenly woken by the barking of a dog. There were no dogs around them, and when he awoke, he realized it was Panda Dabai making the noise. Dabai was staring off into a certain direction of the woods. Is there something over there? Duan Yun followed its gaze and suddenly heard a strange noise. Tonight, there were no stars or moon. As if the sky and earth had been encased in a dark coffin, the light dim. The next moment, Duan Yun couldn't help but exclaim, Damn it! Within the darkness, several figures floated by, sticking close to the trees. Their floating posture was horizontal, eerily reminiscent of the movement technique of the Red House madwoman. They say that traveling for a long time at night makes it easy to bump into ghosts. Could it be that they had really encountered ghosts this time? Quickly, Duan Yun realized they were not ghosts, but people. Bodies of people. By the reflectance from the campfire, he could finally see that they weren't floating in on nothing, but were being carried by water. These were corpses floating on the water. In the dead of the night, water had suddenly risen. A flood. The dark and ominous shadow of water surged over like a primeval monster, swiftly submerging the trunks of the trees below. As the water arrived, the air temperature plummeted, bringing a cold wind. Those corpses must have drowned, and as they passed by Duan Yun, their eyes were wide open, filled with panic. In the dark of night, they appeared all the more horrifying. Luckily, Duan Yun and his companions had chosen a higher spot. But at this moment, Panda Dabai had already started climbing a tree, barking, Damn it! The next instant, Duan Yun's good fortune turned into nothingness. An even more terrifying flood rushed over, bringing with it monstrous waves. Duan Yun didn't hesitate. He grabbed Little Gray and scampered up a nearby tall tree. With a bang, The campfire below was extinguished in an instant, and the turbulent flood made the large tree sway left and right. What was once a hillside was now submerged by the flood in an instant. The thunderous sound of the water was heart-stopping. Duan Yun glanced and could only see the tops of some trees. Boom! The flood was still rising. A wave was heading straight for them. Seeing this, Duan Yun said to Dabai, "Let's go." The panda didn't hesitate to jump from the treetop into the water, and Duan Yun, carrying Little Gray, walked on water amidst the flood. Though he had never specifically learned a movement technique with sufficient cultivation of true qi, he was capable of walking upon water. The flood was immense and fast. Along the way, Duan Yun adjusted his speed by using his toe strength. Panda Dabai, too, was a strong swimmer and kept pace behind him. Otherwise, he would have had to hold on to Panda Dabai with one hand and Little Gray with the other while walking on water. That would have been doubly difficult. The surging flood hit the mountains, turning into huge waves with rumbling sounds. For a time, Duan Yun couldn't see the end of this flood and could only drift along with the currents. Afterward, it became apparent that Panda Dabai was getting tired. Duan Yun drew his sword, chopped down a large tree, and threw it to Dabai. Dabai, intelligent as it was, gave an appreciative bark and clung to the log. Then, Duan Yun also stepped onto the tree trunk, drifting along. Midway, as the speed of the water increased, Duan Yun released true qi from the soles of his feet, adjusting the direction of the log to avoid colliding with the surrounding mountains, trees, and rocks. Especially when it was narrowly missing rugged and oddly shaped rocks. The scene was extremely thrilling. The rumbling of the water was ceaseless, and all he could see seemed like an endless sea. The flood had come too quickly and too fiercely, and even now it felt as if it were a dream. About half an hour later, the water speed finally began to slow. Looking around, one could not tell how many corpses were floating in the water. They were men and women, old and young, and Duan Yun even saw a baby. Their eyes were all wide open, with expressions of alarm on their faces. In the darkness of the night, amidst these surging yellow floods, only the three of them, a person, a donkey, and a panda, were alive, surrounded by floating corpses. The scene was both horrifying and tragic. There was a thud as the log struck something hard. Duan Yu saw a steep hillside nearby and said to Big White, "Up!" Big White struggled with its front limbs and managed to climb onto the muddy slope, but it seemed too exhausted, or perhaps the water was too cold, as it kept slipping. Just as they were about to be swept away by the flood, Duan Yun flashed forward, picking up Big White and leaping to higher ground. After being swept along by the floodwaters for so long, they finally reached an area of higher elevation. By this time, day was almost breaking. The raging floodwaters, like primordial beasts devouring people, were unstoppable, leaving one to wonder where they would flow and when the chaos would end. By noon, the floodwaters continued to spread, and Duan Yun watched with his own eyes as a town was submerged in an instant. Even though most people from the town had been warned and had fled in advance, some were not so fortunate. This was the first time Duan Yun deeply understood what a vast expanse of misery meant. Common folks were like ants under the powerful hands of martial experts in the martial world, barely surviving, and against such a terrifying natural disaster, it was even more so. Along the way, Duan Yun saw 5 or 6 Jiang people struggling in the water, attempting to save the still living townsfolk. He joined in too, quickly recovering dozens of people. But the situation remained dire. The floodwaters were still rapidly rising, and the survivors had no choice but to move higher. Yu State had many mountains and hilltop towns. Above where Duan Yun was located, there was a hilltop town with a population of over 10,000. For the refugees, that was the only place they could escape to. But that was the highest point reachable by ordinary people, and if the floodwaters continued to rise uncontrollably, even that peak would be in danger. At that moment, a man was seen struggling upstream against the current. He was bare-armed, with excellent swimming skills, and truly carried the vigor of Yulong. After he made it to shore, the man told the Jianghu people, "The river mouth downstream is blocked by silt and corpses. Let's go." The 6 Jianghu people, apart from one who truly had no strength left, followed the man as they hurried downstream. Duan Yun saw this, instructed Big White to take Little Gray up to safety, and then followed the group downstream himself. Amid the surging floodwaters, this group of Jianghu people moved swiftly. Clearly, they had trained their true qi and were considered skilled in the martial world. Since entering the martial world, Duan Yun had encountered a variety of people. Most were scheming and murderous, with good people being a rarity. Seeing such selfless acts of rescue in the face of a disaster was something completely new for him. Following behind them, Duan Yun noticed that 3 of the group had grape-like marks on their necks, a sign of some martial sect, it seemed. Then, the man with Yolong's vigor spotted Duan Yun and asked, "Brother, why are you following us?" "Just passing by and joining in the rescue effort," Duan Yun replied. "Rare indeed, truly rare." The Yulong man surged forward with a plunge. In fact, Duan Yun wanted to say rare as well. Rare to find someone as good-hearted as him. Ahead, the flood rose high, and for a moment, there appeared to be waves rushing backward. Duan Yun executed his movement technique and flew upwards, arriving at a river mouth flanked by steep cliffs. Compared to the raging floodwaters, the river mouth was relatively narrow, and as the man had mentioned, it was now blocked, preventing the flood from draining and causing the water level to rise even more. Within the surging waters, around 20 Jianghu people, both men and women, were exerting all their strength to clear the river channel. Some jabbed with long poles, some pushed with palm force, others kicked with their feet, while some were dragging the corpses aside and throwing them, and some were so exhausted they floated like corpses themselves. At this point, Duan Yun made his way to the Yulong man's side and asked, "What lies downstream?" "It's a wilderness down there. With the flood rushing down like this, won't it submerge other towns?" The man, while dragging a corpse, shouted, "The waterways downstream are wide. There won't be any problems." After confirming there were no issues, Duan Yun loudly declared, "Make way! When will you clear this?" "Let me do it." "You?" the Yulong man exclaimed. "Of course me. This young hero is best at clearing things." Saying that, Duan Yun had already charged to the front. "Everyone scatter." In an instant, black death energy spilled from his waist belt, forming the Dharma image of Jade Sword Immortal. 7 layers. Damn it! Damn it! 7 layers of spring rain. Spin. Holy shit! Upon seeing this, the Yulong man shouted, "Quick! Get out of the way!" The group had already been startled by the Dharma image behind Duan Yun and his bellowing roar and, hearing his command, hurriedly sought refuge on the nearby hills without hesitation. And then, a terrifying sword light rose on the wind, charging towards the river mouth. With a boom, the 7 layers of spring rain sword light swept through the floodwaters, striking the river mouth like a dragon drinking water, blasting away the accumulated silt and corpses, creating an opening. Not enough. Still not enough. Spin. Damn it. 8 layers of spring rain. Spin. The Yulong man and his group lay on the hillside, watching the terrifying blade technique and hearing those heroic roars. Their eyes filled with awe as if beholding the Jade Emperor himself. Then, a woman nearby reminded, "Brother Wu, shouldn't we hide a bit further?" The Yulong man suddenly came to his senses and called out, "Don't just watch the show. Keep moving." With a roar, like spring thunder striking the ground, the 8 layers of spring rain came. Chapter 128. Young hero, quickly withdraw your divine skills. The swirling 8-fold spring rain, upon encountering water, transformed into a terrifying water tornado. As the water tornado passed, the floating wood around, along with the silt, shattered directly. Of course, this also included those corpses whose eyes wouldn't close in death. Thump, thump, thump. The thumping sound, like thunder, rang out densely, as the 8-fold spring rain shredded everything that blocked its path. With a boom, the river mouth, clogged by countless amounts of silt and corpses, was torn open, shredded, and turned into a flying torrent in a short amount of time. The river mouth was thoroughly flushed open, its residual force undiminished. The sword power rolled onto the mountains, and the rebounding force nearly severed the surging flood. Young hero Duan Lang truly broke the waves today. The mountains on both sides trembled constantly, shaking loose countless fragments of rock. Even after running a considerable distance, the group of Martial World disaster relief workers were still shaking, their bodies numb and ears ceaselessly buzzing. What kind of sword technique is this? So terrifying. Among them, someone looked at the river water bursting from the river mouth, falling like the galaxy, and couldn't help but exclaim, "It's opened! It's opened!" Before the crowd could celebrate, that crazy voice sounded again. "This river mouth is still not wide enough. Let me help you loosen it up. Breaking body sword energy. Come out." The clogged river mouth had already been blasted open, but Duan Yun still thought it was too narrow, so young hero's fervent gaze swiftly turned towards the nearby mountainsides. There were already many floating corpses gathered here, so when the breaking body sword energy was released, death energy integrated with it as if cost-free. Buzz, buzz, buzz. The terrible buzzing sound echoed through heaven and earth. Centered on Duan Yun, two beams of death energy breaking body sword energy transformed into two pitch-black sword columns, sweeping towards the mountains on both sides. Boom, boom, boom. The river mouth that hadn't changed much in thousands of years was forcibly penetrated by Duan Yun, loosened, and widened. The long-blocked flood, now flowing with even greater intensity, rushed downstream. The people hiding on the mountainside felt for a moment that the whole mountain was about to collapse. A few female heroes who had fearlessly participated in the disaster relief were now pale and somewhat flustered. After all, they were facing someone who nearly caused the mountains and rivers to urinate in fear. At that moment, the previously courageous man from the Yulong shouted, "Senior, please retract your divine skills." He feared that if the other party continued to rampage, they would have to be buried alongside the mountain and the river. Duan Yun realized the river widening operation was almost over, so he withdrew his sword fingers, and the terrifying buzzing sword columns gradually dissipated. The people on the mountain felt as if they had just been spared their lives. They had encountered a person more terrifying than a flood monster. The long-clogged floodwater flowed down the river, spilling like the Milky Way. Duan Yun stood at the river mouth, watching this magnificent scene, feeling tired yet fulfilled inside. Acts of chivalry are indeed rewarding. Sometime later, a group of martial heroes involved in the disaster relief approached the area, their faces filled with reverence. The man from Yulong clasped his hands and said, "Thank you, Senior, for your heroic intervention. May I ask for your honored name?" Seeing this, Duan Yun replied, "I am Duan Lang, just a passerby from the martial world." With that, he went upstream against the current, quickly disappearing from everyone's sight. It wasn't that he sought to act lofty but suddenly remembered Big White and Little Gray. Amidst such chaos, a panda and a gray donkey carrying treasures must not end up lost along with the treasures and pets.
Duan Lang?
Could it be the son of Yunduan Manor? A female hero wondered. Suddenly, someone tremulously said, "Duan, old demon Duan. Also often calls himself young hero Duan Lang." What? As these words were spoken, everyone's faces changed. Those who had just been scared momentarily clenched their legs tighter. Previously, Old Demon Duan's reputation in U State was not as notable as in Yun State, due to the geographical distance between U State and Yun State and the barriers between the two states' martial worlds, often leading each side to think the other was boastful. Yet, Old Demon Duan, considered by U State martial world people to be an exaggerated figure from Yun State to make their martial world seem more exciting and dramatic. But recently, within U State, Old Demon Duan ruthlessly slaughtered numerous fairies from Red House, and even young Master Tang Yu and Little Bao of Tang Sect couldn't escape from being humiliated. Later, he wreaked massive slaughter at Zhu Yan Manor. Renowned figures Zhu Xiang, Zhu Haimian, and Second Lady Chening, all female heroes, were toyed with to death, reportedly even trying to hold hands and die together, but were cruelly separated by the demon, displaying his terrifying cruelty. These were all true events that occurred within U State, shocking the martial world of Ustate and horrifyingly elevating the demonic fame of old demon Duan day by day. Many women hearing his name couldn't help but tighten their legs. This flood disaster caused unimaginable calamity to 7 cities and 26 towns of Ustate, mainly because the mountain flood came too quickly, too fiercely, and too suddenly. Many town residents could not react in time and were buried by the flood. Moreover, the many corpses brought by the water added a particularly ominous and inauspicious flavor. Some people couldn't help but lament that surely it was the wrath of mountain gods and river goddesses that brought such a terrible disaster. Had Duanyun not opened the river mouth in time, the consequences of the flood would have been unimaginable. Though the flood had subsided somewhat, the scene was truly one of widespread desolation. In the floodwaters, some bodies had washed ashore, others, after the flood had receded, hung on trees. During this time, naturally, there were those who helped with disaster relief. Duanyun quietly observed that those most involved in disaster relief were not from the court but a group of self-proclaimed righteous people. Chapter 129. These people and those who went to Broken River mouth before should belong to the same power. Some have a grape mark on their necks. Duanyun inquired and found out that they were people from the Bodhi Charity Hall. The hall master of Bodhi Charity Hall, Ro Puti, was previously a monk in Yunshan Temple, with the Dharma name Wuchen. Wuchen had grown up familiar with Buddhist scriptures, believing that the masters and brothers in the temple were all bodhisattvas, compassionate and ready to relieve suffering. But later, as he grew older, he gradually discovered something terrifying. That is, the entire Yunshan Temple, full of professed lofty ideals, was actually only interested in worldly fame and profit, ostensibly benevolent and kind, but internally full of ugliness. Until one day, Wuchen accidentally entered a secret chamber beneath the Buddhist hall, heard the sounds of men and women panting from within, saw piles of white bones beneath, and was immensely terrified. His fear was not just from the decadent misdeeds of his masters and brothers, but also from the fear that everything he firmly believed in had completely dissipated, like a dream. The Buddhist hall was no longer a Buddhist hall, but had turned into a purgatory. The masters and brothers were no longer bodhisattvas, but evil spirits. He believed that this was not what Buddha was like, and monks who worship Buddha should not be like this. It is said that one night, Wuchen dreamt of immortals and Buddhas passing on Dharma, and afterwards, he opened his eyes. Wielding an Ainen blade, he began to slash. He slaughtered everyone in Yunshan Temple, and it is said that the statues in the Buddhist hall were soaked with blood, a deep red, like tears of blood. After that, Wuchen disappeared. When he reappeared in the martial world, he had become Ro Puti. He claimed that his flesh could detoxify all poisons and regenerate flesh from bones. As long as one was not utterly wicked, he was willing to cut his flesh to save them. This method could be said to imitate Buddha cutting flesh to feed the eagle. Initially, no one believed him, thinking he was insane. A person who had slaughtered his entire sect. If not mad, what was he? Then one day, the Ruan family brothers were poisoned with corpse poison beyond cure, sought Ro Puti, and after eating his flesh, not only was the corpse poison completely cured, but their martial abilities also improved. Naturally, the Ruan family brothers then became his disciples. Later on, as Ro Puti saved more and more people by cutting his flesh, he founded the Bodhi Charity Hall and established his own lineage. People in the Charity Hall claimed themselves as heroic spirits, dedicated to doing righteous deeds their whole life. Throughout the years, the acts of kindness from the Bodhi Charity Hall never ceased, and those inside were not the kind who were outwardly humane and inwardly filthy. Occasionally, few people of evil thoughts emerged, and all met untimely deaths. The rules of Bodhi Charity Hall were extremely strict. Although Ro Puti saved people by cutting his flesh, there was no mercy under the Ainen blade. Thus, in the hearts of the common people, the reputation of Bodhi Charity Hall was much better than that of the court or any benevolent gentry. During this flood, Duanyun also witnessed with his own eyes how they strenuously saved people. Therefore, Duanyun, young hero Duan, silently made a decision. Inside the government office of Qingbai City, the major noble families and sects from around Ustate gathered. The purpose was naturally to prepare for the disaster relief effort. The responsible person was Wu Shan from the Bodhi Charity Hall, also known as the one who transformed into a dragon in the water to save people recently. Though he joined the charity hall not long ago, relatively young, with average cultivation, he held a high position in the hall because he was the last disciple taken in by Ro Puti. Asking the masters to provide silver for disaster relief, a task more strenuous than rewarding, the government office was unwilling to get heavily involved. Knowing that with Bodhi Charity Hall around, it was hard for them to even take a slice of the disaster relief funds, so they only provided a venue and took on the role of spectators. Bodhi Charity Hall had quite a good reputation among the lower classes, and Ro Puti's status in the martial world was also not low, yet these noble families and sect masters were tough opponents. Ro Puti's Anin blade could drag a person into hell, yet ever since wiping out Yunshan Temple, Ro Puti had been dedicating himself to good deeds and had never used it on outsiders, lacking enough deterrence. Inside the hall, Wu Shan pleaded earnestly, "Elderly and seniors, you have also seen the situation across the 7 cities and 26 towns of Yu State. If we do not provide disaster relief, more people will die." Master Huang of the reputable and influential Huang family nodded and said, "Indeed, my Huang family's businesses across the 7 cities and 26 towns have also suffered greatly. These are hard times." As soon as this statement was made, the others chimed in. "My Yunshan Palace's tea business is completely gone. The palace master has been extremely worried lately. He hasn't been eating well, and he even has no time to deal with his young master's marriage matters." Seeing this, Wu Shan couldn't help but shake his head. Thousands of people died here in a moment, and if not handled promptly, more fatalities from epidemics could carry away even more. But what these masters and palace masters were worried about was what some young master's marriage matters, whether or not they could drink bird's nest. Now that the court was weak compared to them, it was indeed poorer and more pathetic. Perhaps if it were not for the sake of their master's Anin blade, these major figures who had extorted who knows how much from the people would not have come. At this moment, Master Huang spoke up, "Hero Wu, we too are concerned about the people, but disaster relief isn't something just a few families can accomplish. We need to call upon the people together. Let's follow the old rule. My Huang family will lead with 3,000 taels of silver, and after gathering enough funds for disaster relief, only need to return 2,500 taels. The remaining 500 taels will indeed be donated." Master Huang declared generously. "Yunshan Palace will also give 3,000 taels, but regarding only returning 2,500, I will still have to ask the palace master." "I too." Hearing this, Wu Shan felt so exasperated he wanted to laugh. All respected seniors, many people are dead, and even later, those who would do business for you, even those who would serve you, will decrease, right? Yes, that's why we need the people together, to generously share wealth and overcome difficulties together. With so many disaster-stricken people this time, how many of them could really afford to donate? Wu Shan said frustratedly. Chapter 130. Hero Wu, there are always more solutions than difficulties. Disaster relief has always been like this since ancient times. No, in the past, we could always get all our silver back. Exactly. Exactly. At this moment, Wu Shan sighed and said, "Actually, this time, someone has already donated 3,000 taels. That's great news. Someone in our Yu state is so generous and righteous. What a great start." Master Huang exclaimed in astonishment. "It's gold," Wu Shan said. "Gold." Hearing this, Master Huang and the others' eyes began to slightly heat up. "Whose money is this?" someone asked. "A passing young hero," Wu Shan replied. "A young hero donated so much? How much will he get back later?" "He doesn't want it back," Wu Shan said. "How is that possible? 3,000 taels of gold, who has so much to give away?" The old steward of Yunshan Palace exclaimed in shock. "He said his surname is Duan. Name Lang, just call him Duan Lang." Wu Shan said earnestly. "Duan Lang? Someone from Yunduan Manor? That's so far away." "Wait! Old Demon Duan! Old Demon Duan!" Two people cried out in unison. The words Old Demon Duan seemed to have a magical power, as several of the carefree nobles suddenly stood up. Wu Shan shook his head and said, I don't know any old demon Duan. I only know about Duan Lang, the charitable young hero who helped break the river dam. At that moment, the old steward of Yunshan Palace was muttering to himself, Old demon Duan, whose real name is Duan Yun, loves to play the hero, once used the name Murong Fu, and later changed his name to Duan Lang. Master Huang also became nervous and said, It can't be old demon Duan. It can't be old demon Duan. It must be a coincidence. Indeed, asking him to donate money was even more painful than killing him. The 500 taels of silver he donated without expectation of repayment was the result of a long internal struggle, hoping to establish a good karma with the Bodhi Temple. After all, if he encountered any issues in the future, the Bodhi Temple's charms could save his life. Disaster relief, delivering food and drinks to those obstinate commoners? Just thinking about it made him angry. Okay? At this moment, Wu Shan said, The silver taels for the disaster relief donated by young hero Duan were converted from treasures, the most valuable of which should be this item. Saying so, he went outside and brought in a twisted and deformed iron rake. With a thud, Master Huang and the others sat down on their chairs, foreheads breaking out in cold sweat. It really is old demon Duan. The news of the annihilation of Zhu Yan Manor by old demon Duan had long spread here, causing the sects and noble families of Yu State to tremble in fear. Now that Zhu Haimian's iron rake was right here, who else could it be if not him? Old demon Duan had gone mad, really donating 3,000 taels of gold. Everyone present was a prominent figure in the area. Initially composed, they were now sitting on pins and needles. Old demon Duan had donated. Would you dare to not donate? He alone donated 3,000 taels of gold. How much will you donate? If you donate too little, would it be seen as disrespect to him, risking him coming to slaughter your entire family? No, it's not just killing your entire family, but to dishonor, humiliate, assault, and then massacre your family. This is coercion to donate. The nobles' faces changed unpredictably. Some were gritting their teeth. Some were in pain as if being flayed, but most were in fear. At this moment, Master Huang's face turned red and then pale as he spoke again. I will donate 3,000 taels of gold. When he mentioned the word gold, it was as if he was about to cry. No, not 3,000 taels, but 3,500 taels of gold. All of it donated to the disaster relief. No need to be repaid. Master Huang seemed to make a firm decision, grinding his teeth and speaking with a look of strength. I will also contribute 3,500 taels. I have to ask our palace master, but it will certainly be more than 3,000 taels. My Jufeng Hall as well. At this point, Master Huang took hold of Wu Shan's hand and said earnestly, If possible, please tell young hero Duan that we too are men of honor, and it is our duty to donate generously. Wu Shan clasped his hands in respect and said, The noble acts of all the elders here will definitely be relayed to young hero Duan Lang when I have time. After that, he left with his rake. For a time, the hall was filled with a mournful atmosphere. Wu Shan returned to the charity hall and told his fellow sect members, The silver needed for disaster relief has been collected. It's enough. Let everyone exert their full effort to save the victims. Understood, Brother Wu. By the way, little Yun, please prepare the good stone. I want to erect a statue for young hero Duan Lang, said Wu Shan. To encourage more charitable acts, the Bodhi Temple would erect statues for great kind men. This was also an honor within the martial world. The sister named Little Yun's face changed at that moment and said, But, Brother Wu, he is actually Mr. Duan. Our Bodhi Temple judges acts, not intentions. In our view, young hero Duan Lang deserves a grand statue, Wu Shan said with determination in his eyes. At that time, young hero Duan Lang was standing at the edge of the flood, staring blankly and muttering to himself, I really did donate it all. Though they say a hero easily parts with wealth and lost gold can be recovered, this was still his first time, and part of him was reluctant to let it go. He looked at the Huangshan golden sword in his hand and said, Well, at least I still have you. Plus 1,000 taels of security deposit and a few dozen taels of silver. Enough for this young hero to live extravagantly. Little Gray and Panda Dubai sat beside him, puzzled by his sporadic bouts of looking at the sky, then showing off his grandeur, and then showing reluctance, full of myriad emotions. Little Gray, on the other hand, was quite happy, feeling as though a burden had been lifted from its back. Suddenly, Duanyun looked towards a not-so-distant place. There was a woman in familiar attire, the goddess-catcher from Qingqi Bureau. But this goddess-catcher wasn't the pair of sisters from before. Her chest size seemed 2 cups smaller, and she must be from the U-State region. At that moment, the goddess-catcher was analyzing the retrieved corpses with her 2 subordinates. The divine catcher, these 6 bodies mostly show signs of poisoning, and 2 of them even have marks of strangulation, said a man dressed like a forensic doctor. What about the time of death? At least 3 days ago. You mean they all died before the floods hit? Asked the goddess-catcher. That's right. According to the description of the villagers, that night when the flood hit, there were many floating corpses. Normally, even in a disaster, there wouldn't be such a concentrated number of floating bodies, another subordinate said. The goddess-catcher's gaze turned cold as she said, this natural disaster could be man-made. But who could pull off something on such a large scale? Let's wait. Such a big commotion can't just be caused by a few individuals. I've already sent people upstream to investigate. There should be results soon. Duanyun was all ears and his eyes gleamed. The flood was someone's doing? Who the hell did this? Taking so many innocent lives, leaving people homeless, and causing this young hero to lose so much money. For a moment, the flames of justice in young hero Duan's heart blazed fiercely once again. If it really was the work of humans, this young hero definitely wouldn't let them get away with it. Chapter 131. Remember, the more handsome the demon, the more deceptive he is. These days, Duanyun had been following the goddess-catcher from a distance, neither too close nor too far. He learned that the goddess-catcher's name was Su Lizzie, unmarried with a C-cup, a local goddess-catcher from U-State. He followed her not because this goddess-catcher was also very beautiful, but because he wanted to know more about the information upstream. If the flood disaster was indeed man-made, he would make those troublemakers feel young hero Duan's wrath. These past few days, seeing the widespread suffering, with human lives treated as if worthless, Duanyun's mood was very heavy. This could be considered the first time he personally witnessed such a disaster scene. Hearing the low crying by the riverside and seeing surviving children unable to find their parents, he only felt heaviness and unease. Moreover, although donating for disaster relief was voluntary, the gold and silver that had just come into his hands had to leave, causing him inevitable reluctance. If someone was behind all this, then he needed to settle the account properly with such people. Young hero Duan collecting debts would certainly require more than just double. Because these past few days, his mental distress had been very serious. Moreover, how twisted and wicked must one be to do such things? Such evil demons not being dead, he, as a young hero, couldn't rest easy. To avoid appearing like a pervert following the goddess-catcher, Duanyun bought a conical hat to cover his handsome face. During this period, Duanyun was almost certain that evil forces were involved in this matter. At least goddess-catcher Su Lizzie had confirmed that many of the bodies that drifted along with the floodwaters were not victims of the flood, but had been murdered first. Then their bodies were dumped into the waters. This was definitely not a small-scale operation. The Qingqi Bureau over there had already sent people upstream to investigate, and by rights there should be results soon. But as of this morning, there was still no movement on the goddess-catcher's side, and Duanyun could only wait patiently. For the purpose of tracking this goddess-catcher, he had let Panda Dubai, along with Little Gray, roam free in the mountain forests. After all, a handsome man accompanied by a panda and a donkey was a bit conspicuous. It must be said, the Panda Dubai he had rented was really reliable. No wonder the May family was so prosperous. Sometimes a powerful panda could be even more reliable than a person. Duanyun had even doubted whether Big White was a person in disguise, but after touching its fur several times, he found no signs of someone wearing a panda suit. At this moment, goddess catcher Su Lizzie had just finished examining the bodies and sat down at a vendor stall to have lunch. Duan Yun sat at another nearby stall and started eating sweet tofu pudding. While eating, he listened intently, overhearing the goddess catcher talking to her subordinates. "Su, that man over there has been following you for half a day," a young maid whispered. "Is she talking about me?" Duan Yun touched his conical hat, feeling a bit embarrassed. He was actually discovered. At this time, the goddess catcher Su Lizzie shook her head and said, "Don't worry about him. He dared to stare at me for half a day. He definitely didn't have any bad intentions, but he was too cowardly and didn't dare to speak up. He must be just some cowardly lovesick person who came here. It can't be helped. My outfit is really too eye-catching. Only sneaking peeks. Ah, such a perverted creep. Mainly because you, Su, were born beautiful. No matter what you wear, you can enchant everyone," the maid flattered. Hearing this, Duan Yun felt a familiar sensation washing over him. Are you goddess catchers trained to listen to flattery? Suddenly, a black hawk flew into the alley and landed at the table in front of the goddess catcher. This black hawk was not large, but its eyes were spirited. It was injured, with blood still dripping from its feathers. Su Lizzie opened the message tube on the Black Hawk's foot, took out a note, and her expression changed instantly. "What's wrong?" the little maid asked anxiously. "White Sox, it's actually the White Sox." Su Lizzie spoke with a complex expression in her eyes. The maid couldn't help but voice her fear. "The White Sox sect? How did they come so quickly? Li Shu and Wang Daxin are not coming back. We need to inform the communication headquarters. And we have to return too." As she spoke, Su Lizzie stood up. She handed the Black Hawk to the maid, instructing, "Bandage it." "Yes, Senior Su. Bandage it while walking." With that, the two women hurriedly walked out of the alley. Duan Yun quickly paid up and followed them. Outside the alley was a carriage, into which the two women swiftly climbed. By the time Duan Yun reached the alley entrance, a woman's voice came out. "Don't follow me. I have important matters to attend to, no time to care about you. Furthermore, my ideal partner must be a universally admired great hero, not a coward like you who only dares to sneakily follow. There are plenty of good women in this world. You don't have to waste your time on me." Before Su Lizzie could finish her rejection, the carriage curtain was lifted. The coward had already bent down and walked in. Su Lizzie and her maid turned pale. Even goddess catcher Su Lizzie had no idea how he got on. The carriage became eerily quiet, and the atmosphere grew weird. The maid's face was tense as she asked, "What are you going to do?" At this moment, the voice of the nervous coachman came from outside. My lord, continue on your way," Duan Yun ordered him directly. "Yes." The coachman obediently set off with the carriage. Then, Duan Yun took off his hat and looked at Su Lizzie with a serious face. "I apologize, Lady Su Lizzie. I just want to explain that I am not the pervert following you, not your admirer, and definitely not a coward. I just really want to know, what exactly is White Sox? Are they the ones behind this disaster?" Looking at the handsome face of the other party, Su Lizzie was certain that he was an expert. She cautiously asked, "Who are you? Why are you asking these questions?" "I am Duan Lang, merely a knight-errant who delights in acting for heaven," said Duan Yun. "Mr. Duan." MMPH. The young girl's mouth was covered by Su Lizzie. Su Lizzie clenched her legs tightly, forcibly suppressing her fear, and said, "Young hero Duan, if you have any issues, take them out on me. You can take me anywhere and do anything. My junior sister is still young. Please spare her." Duan Yun said with a pained expression, "Big sister, I have already explained my purpose. Can you please not jump to such wild conclusions?" "Ha! I just want to know what the White Sox sect is and whether the flood disaster was their doing," Duan Yun repeated. The White Sox sect? You haven't heard of it?" Su Lizzie exclaimed in surprise. Duan Yun shook his head. "No, This is a demon sect that suddenly sprang up in the west of Demon Country. It is said that when the current sect hierarch was born, he was born with warm jade in his mouth and white socks on his feet, a symbol of purity and sanctity. Yet the White Sox sect headed by him is anything but pure and holy. Wherever the White Sox sect goes, disasters often strike, and after each disaster, more people join. Thus, the sect grew rapidly, like wildfire fueled by the wind. In Demon Country, another great sect, the Bright Sect, once formed an alliance with the martial world to eradicate them, but ended in a terrible defeat. After that, the White Sox sect became unstoppable. Preachers of the sect left Demon Country and went straight to Qingzhou, wreaking havoc. The authorities always thought it would be trapped in Qingzhou for a long time, since Qingzhou is not Demon Country and the Qingzhou sects and influential families are not to be trifected with. But since last year, the situation in Qingzhou turned grim. It's said that the White Sox sect suddenly produced several high-level experts, and many Qingzhou sects and families have been completely subdued. Those who resisted have been crushed to ashes. However, even assimilating and digesting the martial world of Qingzhou should have taken quite some time. Who would have thought they would come so fast to use state? At this point, Su Lizzie's tone carried increased panic. This was after all a demon sect that rose out of nowhere and made even the great Bright Sect of Demon Country cower and overpower local forces in Qingzhou. You mean, this flood disaster was caused by the White Sox sect? Duan Yun asked. Definitely related to them, but an incident has already occurred upstream, and my colleagues only managed to send a message of the arrival of the White Sox sect. Their fates are likely dire, she replied. Duan Yun nodded and said, I understand. Thank you, miss, for informing me of everything. This young hero will take a look to see what their White Sox are really like. Young hero Duan. Their White Sox are mostly tucked into their pants, Su Lizzie reminded him. Thank you. As the conversation ended, Duan Yun had already jumped off the coach. The coach had arrived by the raging river, and Duan Yun was seen walking on water, soon disappearing from their line of sight. After a long while, the junior sister said worriedly, Sister, is he old demon Duan? Judging by the characteristics, definitely. Su Lizzie spoke, still rattled. But he didn't treat us harshly, on the contrary. I feel he really resembles a hero, the junior sister said, watching the direction Duan Yun had left, her eyes filled with confusion. Li, remember, the more handsome a demon is, the better they are at deceiving people. You must not be charmed by him, otherwise you'll be doomed, Su Lizzie solemnly said. In fact, she felt she had also been charmed. The moment when he walked on water just now, she actually thought this demon seemed somewhat like the unparalleled hero everyone admires. Stop the coach. At that moment, Su Lizzie suddenly spoke, because there was a statue standing on the bank of the river. The statue, about 3 meters tall and exquisitely crafted, depicted an extraordinarily handsome man. Who else could it be but the old demon Duan who had just been in their coach? Su Lizzie and her junior sister got off the coach. There were already many townspeople at the base of the statue expressing gratitude to young hero Duan. Su Lizzie's eyes narrowed slightly as she read the words inscribed on the pedestal. On the 26th day of the 9th month of Genshin, a flood in Yu brought destruction with nothing to hold it back. People mourned as they could not find their kin, and officials were helpless. A remarkable man, Duan Lang, shattered corpses and stones, directed the water flow, and thus, the flood was resolved. He was then known as Young Hero. After young hero Duan Lang resolved the water of the flood, unable to bear the hardship of the people, donated gold and goods for relief. The local sect master was moved and contributed as well to enrich the townspeople. They erected his statue to wish him well. Contemplating the words, Su Lizzie and her junior sister became entranced, as if in a dream. The old demon Duan who helped in times of hardship? They had long heard rumors about old demon Duan liking to play the game of pretending to be a hero, but this was taking the act too deep, too thoroughly, wasn't it? They had been in a rush to investigate a case and did not know much about other matters in the town, only that the flood was stopped by a miracle man at the river's mouth. They hadn't expected it to be old demon Duan. If an old demon can so convincingly, so thoroughly play the part of a hero, is he a demon or a hero? Suddenly, they were lost, thinking the old demon Duan playing the hero must be mad, and they were going mad themselves for involuntarily growing fond of him. Just then, a group of 7 or 8 swordswomen appeared in front of the statue, attracting a lot of attention. These women were dressed in white, looking spotlessly clean and very eye-catching. Seeing the statue of old demon Duan, one of them exclaimed, "It is the heroic venerate. It really is the heroic venerate." Suddenly, the group of Jian sword sect sat down in front of the statue, chanting in unison, "Believe in the heroic venerate, commit heroic deeds, Jian sword sect, acting for heaven, Jian sword sect, achieving ways on behalf of heaven." As they chanted, a male Dharma image appeared behind them, bearing a striking resemblance to the figure on the statue. On the riverside, in front of the statue, 7 women in white chanted a verse, with the same Dharma image appearing behind them, some suddenly sprouting numerous arms, looking like gods or demons. The scene was eerie and sinister. A passerby from the martial world whispered, "Run! Those are the Jade girls from the Jian sword sect." In an instant, Su Lizzie and her junior sister snapped out of their trance, sweating with fear. Especially the junior sister, frightened pale by the strange sight before her. The sister was right. The demon's outward appearance was deceiving. Yet it was still sinister after all. Chapter 132. Men Can't See. Upon learning that the flood was caused by the White Sox sect, Duan Yun hastened upstream nonstop. Days passed and the river, known locally as Qingyi River, had seen a significant reduction in its flow, yet it still surged with turbulent, muddy waters. As Duan Yun progressed along the riverbank, he frequently spotted unclaimed bodies washed ashore. He did not know the exact location of the White Sox sect, as even the professionals from Qingqi Bureau hadn't provided specific details, but he knew if the flood was man-made, it would inevitably leave behind traces. And they wouldn't be few. He just had to follow the river upstream, and he was sure to find some clues. The upstream of Qingyi River covered a vast area, and following the river meant Duan Yun wouldn't lose his way, though it did get dark as he traveled. He decided to eat first. One must eat to have the energy to continue, and only with a full stomach could he thoroughly exterminate the culprits. The journey had been severely impacted by the disaster, leaving no place to buy food, but as a young hero who's always ready to act for justice, Duan Yun habitually carried dry food and liquor with him. The liquor was stored in a flask, which was not only convenient to carry but also rather stylish. In a martial arts video game set in a former life, this flask would probably be an accessory skin. Duan Yun alternated between sips of liquor and bites of dry food. It certainly wasn't comparable to dining out, but as long as it filled him up, it was sufficient. Once full, it was time to act. During the night, Duan Yun only dozed off briefly before continuing on his way. He wouldn't be able to sleep well until he found the White Sox. He was curious to see just how these White Sox operated. By noon the next day, Duan Yun arrived at the first town upstream on the Qingyi River, Linjiang Town. Linjiang Town appeared to have been the first to suffer from the flood. Even though the water had receded considerably, half of the town's buildings were still submerged. Bodies floated in the town. Particularly, one household still had red happiness characters pasted on its doors and windows, yet a bloated body floated eerily inside the house. At this point, Duan Yun somewhat regretted not having brought Goddess Catcher along for company. Well, to help look for the White Sox, nothing else. Professional matters should be handled by professionals, and Goddess Catcher would likely handle this much better than he could. After all, he was a novice in the martial world, often duped by unkind passers-by. With no clues here, Duan Yun had to continue his journey following the river. The cities upstream had suffered even more severely than those downstream, with very few survivors. The areas below were towns that had been submerged and still had bodies floating around, but a city in the mountains was bustling with activity. This city, called Lishan City, was not previously well known and could even be considered insignificant. It sat halfway up a mountain, where the roads were rugged, not easy to traverse, and there was no dock, traders seldom visited. Yet, these disadvantages saved it from the disastrous flood. Like Qingbai City, it became a refuge for all the disaster victims within 100 miles. Lishan City had never seen so many people before. Logically, it should have been chaotic. But it wasn't. There were many people in Lishan City with its streets packed, yet instead of chaos, there was order, and the streets were even quite clean. People would go to designated areas for defecating and urinating. Nobody objected to this system. Those who did were already gone. They were grateful to be alive. Many here were nearly drowned before being rescued. Upon arriving in the city, some were even provided with food. Of course, there were troublemakers, but they all disappeared over the course of one night. It seemed like invisible beings inhabited this city, easily erasing any unsettled presence. Thus, within just a few days, the people of the city became obedient. Very obedient. Of course, there were those who didn't conform. Huang Feihong, a night crow from Qingqi Bureau, which meant he was a spy and hidden guard, was professional. He sensed that invisible beings, seemingly invisible hands, controlled the city, and had already noticed some traces. Those were a group of people wearing white socks. In the martial world, people who wore white socks were usually not to be trifled with, as this was typically the attire of Taoists, monks, and nuns. But this group wearing white socks was even more mysterious. Their socks were not visible externally but worn inside the trousers, making it hard for commoners to notice. The critical detail was that these socks were not made of cloth, but of silk, giving a translucent appearance. He had just last night glimpsed a white sock peeking out from under a pant leg. He was a big bearded man. Even his pitch-black leg hair protruded through those translucent knitted socks. According to Huang Feihong, this type of knitted sock craftsmanship was said to exist only in the demon country in the western regions. And at this moment, he couldn't help but suspect the White Sox sect. This disaster, this controlled city were related to them. According to his understanding, this mysterious demon sect that suddenly arose from the demon country not only quickly expanded within the demon country but also became a significant force in Qingzhou. Unexpectedly, the White Sox sect advanced so aggressively, extending their reach into the boundaries of Yu State. Would Yu State become the next Qingzhou? He didn't know. Such profound issues were beyond his control. He needed to ensure he stayed alive first. He knew that 2 of his colleagues had already died in this city. The White Sox were very secretive. On this street alone, it was unknown how many White Sox were hidden. This was also why, even for a professional night crow, it was difficult to send out information. The message that Black Hawk took away yesterday, he didn't know if it had reached the top brass. At this moment, Huang Feihong suddenly became alert. This alertness was an instinctive reaction formed from years of undercover work, which had saved his life numerous times. Had the White Sox come? In theory, his cover was already very good, but somehow he still gave himself away. Huang Feihong pretended to be nonchalant as he stood up and turned into an alley. Almost at the same time, people entered the alley from both ends. His perception was not wrong. He had been targeted. Sweat began to form on the tip of Huang Feihong's nose. In this city full of mysterious White Sox in Lishan City, would he be devoured like those colleagues and people from the martial world who disappeared overnight? The ones who entered from both ends of the alley were all women. One was tall like a bamboo pole, the other quite short like a gourd. They were both wearing pants and boots, so it wasn't visible whether they wore white socks. From their steps, the 2 clearly were trained in martial arts. But at this moment, Huang Feihong wasn't too panicked. Because he had already discerned that their true qi was quite average. Presumably they had only started to cultivate true qi not long ago. Before being a night crow, he was a clamp in the Qingqi Bureau. The night crow is a hidden guard, while the clamp is a fighter. He later stopped being a clamp, not because he couldn't continue, but because he performed too well, finding it was no longer challenging. Thus he turned to being a night crow to seek new thrills. At this moment, Huang Feihong was very confident. At this level, conservatively speaking, he could fight 10 White Sox by himself. At least he wouldn't be captured right now. At this time, the 2 White Sox had already approached. Their steps suddenly sped up. Everything was within Huang Feihong's predictions, and the steps and movement techniques of the two further exposed their level as he had observed. Being a clamp requires good fighting skills, while being a night crow requires good observational skills. Huang Feihong seized the opening, with true qi circulating in his arms, his left hand working simultaneously, aiming to defeat both in one move. Best to make no sound at all. But the next moment his body shook, and it was he who fell. He fell to the ground, able to see the two standing beside him, and could faintly see the traces of white socks under their pants, but he couldn't see their faces. From beginning to end, the opponents appeared as if they had just entered the Qi-Si realm not long ago, that shorty not even fully stepping into the threshold of the Qi-Si. Yet the one who fell was him, an experienced and strong mid-level clamp of the Qi-Si. It was all because the white socks move was a finger technique, an extremely tricky and bizarre finger technique, even somewhat extreme. The effect of very ordinary people using extreme techniques is rarely known in this world. Because those who can cultivate extreme techniques are usually extraordinary, therefore not ordinary. But at this moment, Huang Feihong witnessed it. Very ordinary people, yet coincidentally cultivating a very extreme technique. Maybe only this one move, but it was already enough. Is this the terror of the White Sox sect? At this time, Huang Feihong was already lifted, powerless throughout his body. He couldn't help but ask, "What technique is this?" That shorty smiled and said, "This move is called Men Can't Say." As soon as the words fell, Huang Feihong lost consciousness. Chapter 133. For heroic venerate, kill, kill, kill. In the dimly lit room, Huang Feihong was hung up entirely. 2 silver needles were inserted into his chest. At this moment, the shorty woman approached and asked, "Tell me, what is your name?" Huang Feihong said in pain, "Fang Baoyu." "Lies." The shorty woman flicked the 2 silver needles with her fingers, causing Huang Feihong's whole body to tense up, his face flushing red. Pain. Intense pain. The pain made his chest feel like it was rebelling, gnawing at itself. "Tell me, what is your real name?" As the woman asked, she inserted another needle into his chest. Seeing the needle that could kill from pain, Huang Feihong's head grew heavy, and he quickly replied, "Huang Feihong, what do you do?" The woman's fingers seemed eager as she asked, "I am a disciple of the Yunlin Palace, and Yunlin Fairy is my master." Huang Feihong hurriedly, honestly replied. Being a professional night crow, and previously a torturer clamp, he was skilled in this area. At that moment, the woman fiercely flicked the silver needles, causing his chest muscles to tumble wildly. "Ah!" Watching this woman play the lute on his body, tears and snot came out from the pain endured by Huang Feihong. "Actually, I am part of the Spirit Fish Gang, Elder Yilin, soon to be promoted to Elder Bailan. I really am." Huang Feihong quickly confessed in tears. He had prepared several identities for himself. If each identity were a garment, stripping him bare would take some effort. That is, if he doesn't die from the pain. Shorty seemed to believe him, gradually ceasing her actions, but the silver needles still trembled, continuously tormenting him. At this moment, a tall woman came in and said, "Sister, stop playing with him. What's the point in questioning him like this?" Shorty pondered. "But the latest news is that the chaos in U state isn't as bad as imagined." "So what? It's just like Qingzhou, if anyone disobeys, we'll just kill them." Previously, someone praised the Qingzhou masters to the skies, but weren't they wiped out by us, one by one? The tall woman said proudly. Indeed, when divine sect from divine country entered Qingzhou, some within their ranks believed Qingzhou was filled with formidable experts, not easily dealt with. However, they crushed through like a hot knife through butter. Now in the current world, who could stop the advance of White Sox? At this moment, Huang Feihong couldn't help but say, "If you are so formidable, do you also have a move men can't see besides women can't be seen?" Shorty involuntarily said, "You know about this too. Since neither men nor women can see it, then you all are truly invincible." Actually, I am quite interested in Women Can't Be Seen, said Huang Feihong. Too bad you are not a woman, so you can't see it, Shorty teased. Actually, there might be a chance, Huang Feihong said thoughtfully. In Yu State, we have old demon Duan who can turn men into completely fallen women. Huang Feihong tried to engage the two women in conversation, seeking topics. As a spy, only through such interactions could he possibly find an opportunity while being captive. Hearing this, Shorty wondered, Yu State has such a person? The actions of White Sox sect were not impulsively decided but had been long planned. They intended to preach in Yu State, which meant biting into the local forces of Yu State. They had some understanding of the key figures there. But this old demon Duan sounded evil. Yet they were unaware of him. Not long after, Shorty reportedly had gone to look up this person. Huang Feihong wanted to continue talking with the tall woman, but she just sneered coldly, paying him no heed. A short time later, Shorty returned and mocked, Old Demon Duan is a new demon emerging in Yun State. What the hell does that have to do with you State people? Huang Feihong's face flushed, retorting, Since ancient times, Yun and you have been close as kin. What difference does it make between Yun State and Yu State? In fact, Jianghu people from Yu State and Yun State have always looked down on each other. There was never a time of kinship. Huang Feihong brought up Old Demon Duan not only as small talk but also to subtly undermine their authority. After all, Old Demon Duan's evil reputation was quite terrifying. At this point, Shorty was dismissive. Old Demon Duan, Dog Demon Duan. Anyone who dares to obstruct our divine sect will meet a dreadful end. Huang Feihong was a bit surprised. Surprised that even after hearing the name of Old Demon Duan, they still didn't react much. If Shorty and the tall woman were high-level practitioners from divine sect in the Tongyu realm who despised Old Demon Duan, it would be understandable to him. But these two had only just entered the Qi realm and were already so confident. Yet, the absurd strength of White Sox sect was indeed in their ability to conquer the strong with the weak. He not being a match for these two was the perfect example. But Yu State is definitely not to be trifled with. Just the Tang sect's 9 young masters, Huangshan's 6 swords, and Linglong Palace's sun and moon double sabers, to name a few, won't let you run amok easily, Huang Feihong continued. At this moment, the tall woman spoke up. Do you think we're underestimating Yu State martial arts? Weren't you also of the opinion that they were stronger than us? Huang Feihong defiantly said, Although your move is formidable, it's enough to deal with me. But to confront these famous masters, it's simply inadequate. It might be inadequate, but here there aren't just 2 of us wearing white socks. I might as well tell you, since sooner or later all of Zhuzhou will encounter us, we often move in groups of 10s or 100s. The number of famous masters who have died at our hands is even hard to count. Shorty giggled. At this, Huang Feihong only felt a chill running from his feet up to his brain. Chapter 134. He thought of a scene, a famous martial arts expert like himself, thinking he could easily deal with these seemingly ordinary white socks. But every one of these white socks has a secret technique practiced to perfection, such as, men can't see. With their tacit coordination, hundreds of ordinary white socks used hundreds of perfected moves at once. Combined, what would become of that overconfident expert? At this moment, Huang Feihong seemed to grasp a key point. The reason why the White Sox sect could rise so suddenly and rarely meet an equal was probably due to this. It enabled ordinary people to become extraordinary. In the martial world, it was extremely difficult for great families and sects to find and nurture a genius. These geniuses were naturally the mainstays of their sects and families. But the White Sox sect was different. It disrupted this pattern. It's much easier to find 10 ordinary people than to find 1 in 10,000 geniuses. And the terrible thing about the White Sox sect was that these 10 ordinary disciples could potentially kill that 1 in 10,000 cultivation prodigy. 100 ordinary White Sox could even possibly kill a dreaded old demon. This was an existence more terrifying than any sword array or battle formation. Because in the past, it was exceedingly rare for ordinary people in the martial world to master a move to perfection. Yet the followers of the White Sox sect could. Reflecting on this, Huang Feihong's heart sank. Perhaps this was the reason why the White Sox were undefeated and fearless. They didn't even mind revealing this secret to him. Exactly how many followers the White Sox sect had, no one could say for certain. Thinking of the swarms of White Sox filling the martial world, Huang Feihong felt his scalp tingle. Meanwhile, in the streets and lanes of Qingbai City, there were many more storytellers. Due to the influx of disaster victims, the city had actually been much busier than usual these days. Fortunately, the disaster relief funds from the Lords didn't delay a bit, and with the well-coordinated efforts of Bodhi Charity Hall, Qingbai City did not descend into chaos. In the most bustling tea house, a storyteller with a red turban around his head couldn't stop talking. It's said that people from the White Sox sect have appeared up the Qingyi River. Some might not know what the White Sox sect is, but anyone who has spent time in the Demon Country or Qingzhou knows they are a group of devils dressed in white socks. Qingzhou's largest gang, the Heavenly Clothes Gang, had its gang leader beheaded by them, along with 18 of the gang leader's wives, all hung on the city walls. The Wang family of Qingzhou, known for its martial experts, is now left with only Iron Fist Wang Shuang. If you ask me, Qingzhou's martial world is now under the White Sox rule. Now they've come. This flood is just the beginning. If we, the heroes of state, don't unite, we're doomed to destruction. At this point, the storyteller clapped his shocked wooden block and reminded, if you ask me, it's our state heroes that emerge in abundance. As far as I know, facing this critical moment, young hero Duan Lang, who previously stopped the flood and saved lives, full of courage, has already gone alone to meet the White Sox. Good, good, good. Hearing this, a group of people couldn't help but cheer. However, those familiar with the martial world were puzzled. Isn't young hero Duan Lang old Demon Duan? They had already heard the news that old Demon Duan stopped the flood, gave gold for disaster relief, and thought that it was old Demon Duan playing the young hero too deeply. Now old Demon Duan had even gone to confront the White Sox sect. At the top floor of the tea house, Su Lizzie and her junior sister watched in silence. At this time, the junior sister couldn't help but say, Sister, you spread the news without the supervisor and general office's approval this time. Is this too risky? If I don't say anything, will the White Sox not come? But is this useful? The junior sister asked, puzzled. Everyone knew the proverb, shoot the bird that sticks out. Besides madmen like old Demon Duan, the characters of the martial world of state were probably just spectators. It's better to have help than none at all, and besides, this story isn't meant for the ordinary folks of state's martial world, said Su Lizzie with a worried expression. Sister, are you worried about old Demon Duan? The junior sister asked tentatively. Old Demon Duan is powerful, is unorthodox, but after all, he is just one person, and the White Sox are an exceptionally unorthodox group, said Su Lizzie. Seeing her sister's worried expression, the junior sister did not dare to speak for a while, because she couldn't help but think of the complicated ties between goddess catchers and demons. Stories where goddess catchers sacrificed themselves to demons. Could it be that her elder sister also? The junior sister shook her head, hurriedly discarding the strange thoughts in her mind. Then, on the street, 3 sword-carrying men overheard all this. The leader of the men said, Old Demon Duan has gone upriver. We should go too. Another young man said, Big brother, shall we wait for third sister and the others? To deal with old Demon Duan, our 3 talents sword formation is already enough. Why bother using the Huangshan 6-peak sword? Besides, with old Demon Duan fighting the White Sox sect, it's our perfect opportunity to strike while they are distracted. Sister, your brother is here for your revenge. With that, the big brother of the Huangshan sword sect, Lu Qingyu, suddenly shed tears. Since childhood, he and Chening were childhood sweethearts, always treating her as his own sister. But on that day, when Chening was married to Zhu Haimian, Lu Qingyu suddenly felt a profound pain. It was as if the sky had collapsed. Pain, such intense pain. He suddenly realized that he loved his junior sister. The kind of love between lovers. He had been constrained by certain societal notions before, which was why he felt so pained at the time, and even now he found it hard to move on. But to his shock, the pain could even intensify. Old Demon Duan had actually killed his junior sister, Chun Ying, the love of his life. Therefore, upon receiving the news, he set out to kill Old Demon Duan. He didn't care whether the White Sox sect would cause an uproar, bringing calamity upon the world. All he wanted now was to slay Old Demon Duan. It would be best to ambush and backstab the scoundrel while a conflict erupted between Old Demon Duan and the White Sox sect, because he knew that such a sneak attack would inflict profound pain and regret on Old Demon Duan. And so, the heartbroken Huangshan's first sword, Lu Qingyu, set out with 2 other swords. Not long after, the one-eyed green dragon monk overheard the news about Duan Yun and said, "Head, it's Old Demon Duan." It was an old monk clad in a short robe with a dark complexion. The already imposing one-eyed green dragon monk seemed diminutive next to the older monk, like a chick beside him. The old monk was not taller or more robust than him, but he appeared more majestic and fierce. The old monk, referred to as Head, nodded and said, "Old Demon Duan is both righteous and evil. It would be good for this humble monk to convert him and have him shave his head to become a monk." Saying this, the 2 monks also vanished into the city, heading upstream. Su Lizzie was unaware of the Huangshan 3 swords and the Taishui temple monks. She only knew that the person she was eagerly waiting for had not arrived until the evening. The bloodthirsty storyteller kept repeating those words, his voice almost hoarse. Just then, 5 female sword cultivators dressed in white arrived in the city, and just as they were about to sit down for tea, they heard of young hero Duan Lang's deeds. One of the female sword cultivators exclaimed in surprise, "It's Heroic Venerate. Heroic Venerate is going to kill White Sox. Sisters, let's go too. The one Heroic Venerate wishes to slay is also our enemy. Those who hold a grudge against Heroic Venerate shall not coexist with us under the heavens." In an instant, a fierce and fiery light shone in the eyes of the 5 female sword cultivators as they spoke loudly. "Sister, listening to this, there are many from the White Sox sect. So what if the White Sox sect has many members? Are there fewer of us from the Jade Sword sect? Sisters, gather all nearby sisters. It's time to slay the White Sox sect. Believe in Heroic Venerate. Perform heroic deeds. Believe in Heroic Venerate. Act for heaven. Believe in Heroic Venerate. Carry out heroic acts. Jade Sword sect. Act for heaven. Jade Sword sect. Enact the way on behalf of heaven." Hearing it was the Jade girls from the Jade Sword sect, the nearby people were already scared and stealthily retreated. Then an even more bizarre scene occurred. The initial group of 5 awe-inspiring Jade girls, as they chanted their slogan and occasionally set up sword positions, were joined by women in white coming from all directions, swelling their ranks. By the time they reached the city's outskirts, there were 100 in number. The junior sister gasped, "There are so many Jade girls?" Su Lizzie murmured, "The Jade Sword sect doesn't have a fixed headquarters. Maybe they've always been scattered like this." Over 100 Jade girls stood outside the city, and the leader waved her arm. "Sisters, for Heroic Venerate, let's kill the White Sox." Afterward, the group moved against the current, and behind them, one after another, the Dharma images of Old Demon Duan appeared, creating an exceptionally eerie and terrifying scene. At that moment, children stopped crying, adults' legs went weak with fear, and those nearby were so frightened they wet themselves. Forget about running. Seeing this scene, the junior sister turned pale and said, "Sister, can the White Sox sect be even more sinister than this?" Similarly pale, Su Lizzie said, "I don't know." As the goddess catcher, she had seen a lot, but she had never witnessed a spectacle with so many Jade girls and the Dharma images of old demons. It was extremely sinister. Chapter 135. Are you there? Check out the leg. The sword is what sword, young hero's golden light sword. The knife is what knife, hero's gentle knife. The person is what kind of person, a person acting for heaven. In the night, Duan Yun sat on a hillside, holding swords and knives while humming a song. Searching for the White Sox sect had not been successful, especially in the mountainous and watery state, where it was even less friendly towards an outsider young hero. Today, Duan Yun had encountered some living people, but they were all disaster victims. Not only were they not wearing white socks, some of them didn't even have pants. Tonight there was a moon, and a cold wind blew through the mountains. Below the hillside, the river water roared, and the moonlight blurred along with the pine shadows on the riverbank. It was a beautiful scene. However, Duan Yun was not in the mood to appreciate it. He still hadn't found the white socks, nor had he killed them. The road was under his feet. He must continue to move forward. The disaster-stricken area was much larger than he had imagined, and the terrain was complex. The white socks were sneaky, and for a while did not show any traces. Duan Yun once again regretted not having captured Su Lizzie, the goddess catcher, to come along with him. Even if she didn't want to come, he, as a young hero, should have been a bit forceful, slightly coercing her to join him. As a righteous companion, could she, a goddess catcher, decently refuse? Moreover, during the long night, having a goddess catcher together, even if catching nothing, they would be catching nothing together. Now he couldn't say he was catching nothing with the goddess catcher. He didn't even have a lead donkey. Ouch! A moment later, Duan Yun still found a righteous companion. His foot stepped on grass, and a snake attacked him. This snake was about 3 feet long, covered in dark green, with a triangular-shaped head that looked slightly poisonous. Is this a green poison dart? Duan Yun grabbed the snake, tied it into a knot, and wrapped it around his waist, pondering. Along the way, the poisonous snake tried to bite him, each time being repelled by breaking body sword energy, and fine blood seeped from its head. After several attempts, the snake was too scared to attack again. It wanted to curl up, but Duan Yun had tied it around his waist. So Duan Yun felt the snakeskin belt tighten a bit. Under the moonlight, even though the flood had receded, the remnants were obvious. Duan Yun, with his extraordinary wisdom, thought and analyzed. The bodies in the flood were densely packed before. They must have a designated dumping spot, and the flood came so suddenly and without signs. If it was man-made, it is very likely that someone deliberately broke open a large dammed lake. Even the blocked river mouth, someone had tampered with it early on. Thus, Duan Yun's gaze quickly followed the trail of the flood toward the direction of the mountain. The higher he went, the more apparent the erosion marks formed by the water flow became. There was no path on the mountain originally, with wild grass and trees growing among mud and rocks. With a snap, Duan Yun picked up the righteous companion and whipped it, and the thorny bushes blocking the path were cleared. The green poison dart whipped the thorns apart, but it also suffered severe injuries itself. Its skin split open and only half its life remained. In the next moment, Duan Yun stood still in place. He saw a huge trace. In this trace, there was mostly reddish moist mud, mixed in with some broken bushes and weeds and quite a few bodies. Under the night sky, this huge trace looked like a bloody wound on the mountain. And those bodies in the wound lay with their eyes wide open. Some had half their bodies wrapped in the mud, others were entirely covered in moist mud, like sculptures. Under the moonlight, their appearance with open eyes, as if struggling to climb out from the mud, was both pitiful and horrifying. The air was permeated with a stench. Duan Yun knew he was close to the place where the bodies were being exhumed. The deep valley was dense with vegetation on the upper half, still lush green even in this deep autumn, while the lower half of the valley appeared somewhat bare, as if plucked bald, exposing the moist mud. There was once a lake here, a lake situated atop a mountain. But now, the lake had transformed into a valley-like appearance due to a massive breach on one side. The breach was filled with many holes, big and small, looking as if numerous giant pythons had burrowed through. A sight so densely packed it sent shivers down the spine and instilled fear. The White Sox sect must have used some special method to create such a large breach. This breach connected to the giant trail on the mountain below, the place they exhumed bodies. Perhaps the bodies had already been piled there, just waiting for the break to open to wash down. Under the moonlight, the mud-filled valley momentarily looked like a realm of ghouls. When the wind blew, It was as if ghosts were crying. However, at that moment, Duan Yun spotted some light. A temporary wooden cabin stood somewhere in the valley. The night was deep, and inside the cabin were lights and people drinking. Though the cabin was small, it had everything necessary. Most importantly, there were 2 very comfortable beds. 3 men and 2 women were to sleep on these very comfortable beds. It was apparent that the 5 people had a harmonious atmosphere, as after all, it was common for brothers and sisters of the White Sox sect to live and eat together. Sister, how long do you think it will take for our sect to take over you state? Asked the girl with twin ponytails. The woman referred to as Sister smiled gracefully and said, I think you state isn't as good as Qingzhou. After all, we've become more powerful. Yeah, our divine sect keeps getting stronger in battle, and sooner or later, Zhuzhou will be ours. Thinking of more sisters dressing like us in white socks, I just… While talking, she couldn't help but touch herself. Sister, stay with me tonight. The girl with twin ponytails pleaded. Okay, sure, there shouldn't be any major issues here. According to common sense. Her words were cut off by a whimpering wind that made the lamp on the table flicker. They were accustomed to the howling wind that sounded like ghostly cries. But at this moment, one of the men suddenly became alert and said, What's that sound? Hearing him, the others sobered up considerably. The wind now seemed not only to contain the cries of ghosts but also voices of people. As followers of the White Sox sect who had killed many, they normally wouldn't be afraid. However, this was after all deep in the secluded woods, and there were far too many dead this time. The image of swollen bodies floating with the stream was a memorable sight. So, hearing this eerie sound, the 5 of them grew anxious. Could it be Li messing with us? One of the men wondered. Let's go have a look, said the girl with twin ponytails while still touching herself, as she walked towards the window. The closer she got to the door and windows, the more distinct the strange wind sound became, and her self-touching frequency increased. This indicated how nervous he was. Suddenly, the wind stopped. Everything returned to normal. Unable to help herself, the girl with twin ponytails let out a sigh of relief, only then to find the other 4 looking at her in panic. Her whole body bristled with fear, and as she glanced, she nearly lost half her soul. Outside the window, suddenly, there appeared a handsome face. Very handsome, yet terrifying in this night. Then, this face spoke. Are you there? Let's see those legs. Chapter 136. Your strength is too low. At the dead of night, amidst this valley filled with corpses, a wooden cabin abruptly appeared. Men and women inside the cabin were drinking alcohol. From a glance, they were obviously not up to any good. Who among the decent would live in such a place? Just like no respectable family would build their house beside a graveyard. The Murong brothers were not respectable people. Duan Yun speculated that these were probably individuals from the White Sox sect. Still, to avoid wronging the innocent, he asked seriously, Anyone home? Show me your legs. Clearly, the people inside the cabin were startled by his question and did not stick out their legs. If they had nothing to hide, why wouldn't they show their legs? At this moment, the pig-tailed woman closest to him suddenly extended her finger, striking towards him. TSCK. Back when Duan Yun just started his martial journey, he was known for his remarkable finger skills, and after learning finger strength, his techniques reached even higher proficiency. Nowadays in the martial world, both men and women who hear about his finger technique might feel their legs go weak. However, witnessing this pig-tailed woman's finger technique, he saw something in her moves that surprised him. These techniques were exceedingly tricky and odd, even vaguely reaching a pinnacle of speed that even he might have difficulty replicating on the fly. Logically, such moves could only be performed by a master of finger technique. But this woman was no master. Her cultivation was very average, at best having recently entered the Qi-Si realm. Duan Yun also extended a finger, his fingertip charged with sword Qi, and he countered head-on. With a snap, the pig-tailed woman's finger was broken, flesh and bone shattered, and she was sent flying backward, crashing through the wall and letting out a piercing scream. This was a clear case of overpowering with sheer force. Nevertheless, Duan Yun had to admit, had this woman faced an average opponent from the Qi realm, that one finger strength might have secured victory, even taking the opponent's life. It was fortunate he was more skilled. Almost at the same time, the other 4 individuals in the cabin also made their moves. They didn't attack together, but one after another, in a bizarre rhythm. The 3 men used finger techniques similar to the fallen woman, while the remaining woman used toe skills. Indeed, her boots had flown off by this time, revealing a pale foot in white socks, kicking towards Duan Yun's lower body. Like before, both the finger techniques and toe skills were convoluted and deceptive, and when combined, could even disrupt one's energy. Seeing the white silk toe nearing his vital area, Duan Yun finally extended his arm, transforming it into a blur of afterimages. Pop, 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 pop. His sword finger, delayed yet swift, struck each person's fingertips and toes. Ah! Oh! Oh! A chorus of alternating screams continued. The 3 men and 1 woman were all taken down, urine splashing as their faces bore an expression of either pain or pleasure. At this moment, Duan Yun had already removed the pants of the 4 individuals. Indeed, all 4 were wearing white socks. Remarkably, the woman was in thigh-high white silk. Yes, he hadn't expected the white sock sect to wear such transparent type of white socks. Men wearing white silk stockings, showing leg hair, utterly unforgivable. With a lift of his hand, a strange suction force pulled the heads of the 3 men towards him, while the woman who used the toe skills forcibly held back the urge to urinate, shivering and trying to escape. Then Duan Yun raised his right hand. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The candlelight inside the cabin flickered as Duan Yun sucked the 3 men with his left hand and the woman with his right, his posture carefree. The true qi of the 4 flowed into his body, his robes fluttering without wind, and hair flying. The swaying candlelight reflected upon him, radiating heroic spirit. Outside, the pigtailed woman whose hand was blasted away saw this scene and, despite not being hit by the flirtatious finger strength, wet herself. What kind of monster is this? Unexpectedly, this time Duan Yun didn't get the chance to convert these 3 men with his heroic spirit before their bodies trembled, and they were devoid of life. And this white socks girl was a bit stronger, but she was already rolling her eyes back, about to give in. They're much too weak. Duan Yun's original intention was to explore the intricacies of their techniques, which were truly tricky and poisonous, far exceeding their actual level of cultivation. But the true cultivation of these people could only be described as shrimp soldiers and crab generals. They couldn't withstand the intensity and were sucked dry in no time. So, with a flick of his hands, Duan Yun slammed the 4 to the ground with a thud. At that moment, Duan Yun could only look at the pigtail's white socks whose arm had been blasted off with eyes of justice. Seeing Duan Yun approaching, the white socks girl turned her head and, to his surprise, died. Duan Yun pried open her mouth and found that this wretch had actually committed suicide by poison. Rather die than be reformed by valor. You really are a bad seed by nature. Duan Yun couldn't help but snark. Duan Yun hurried to check on the only survivor in the house, the woman who had just had her eyes rolling back from the sucking. But at that moment, the woman suddenly sat up, screamed, "A ghost!" then slanted to the ground, dead. "Do I look like a ghost with this handsome face?" Duan Yun said with a grim expression. But a grim expression was useless since they were all dead now. The one advantage of the dead is that they no longer have to be afraid. That last spurt of life from the woman was probably her life's last flicker. In fact, on his journey so far, Duan Yun had indeed absorbed many people, but those who could be absorbed by him all had some level of skill. This was the first time he encountered someone with such poor cultivation. Duan Yun sat in the house, tossed the corpses outside, and started drinking the wine they hadn't finished and eating the food they had scarcely touched. People always need to eat. By the end, Duan Yun had untied and thrown aside his righteous companions. Then, Duan Yun went out again, took off the long tube white silk from the pigtails girl, and began to study them. By touching the white socks, Duan Yun confirmed that they were extremely similar to the white silk from his previous life, saying they were pretty much the same aside from the material, achieving 70 to 80% of the effect. He had promised Yuzhu to get her a pair of silk stockings, but he hadn't found a good opportunity. Did he just come across a pair readily available? But these had been worn by someone else, and Yuzhu would surely disdain them. So Duan Yun threw the sour-smelling socks out. The White Sox sect was a group of people who wore silk inside their pants, wrapped tight from their pants to shoes. It would be strange if they didn't smell sour. But this also gave him a direction to look for silk stockings. The people sent by the White Sox sect this time wouldn't be few, and with the inevitable wear and tear on the White Sox, there would certainly be new supplies. By then, he could snag a few new pairs, preferably with a variety of styles, long, short bodysuits, to bring back to Yuzhu Villa as a gift for Yuzhu. Thinking of his friends Shening and the Murong brothers, he couldn't help but crack a slight smile. Of course, this was just a side quest. He, as a young hero, had the primary duty of eradicating demons and defending the path of righteousness. By now, Duan Yun became a bit more solemn, due to these White Sox people's sinister nature. The reason he managed to subdue them was that he was way above their level. But people who were only 1 or 2 levels above them could easily be defeated by the White Sox. If the White Sox could triumph over the stronger, then what about their leader? No, such a terrible scourge couldn't be left in this world. Indeed, the thought of such a frightening evil demon opposing him made it hard for Duan Yun to feel at ease. He must go and kill them first. But since the people had been sucked dry, his initial plan to reform them with heroic spirit and ask for directions fell through. And Duan Yun could only continue to search for the White Sox by following the clues around him. A good meal is worth waiting for. None of the White Sox here shall escape. Chapter 137. Invincible White Sox? Huangshan's sword sect's eldest senior brother, Lu Qingyu, was walking up the mountain with 2 junior disciples. Speaking of which, one of the junior brothers was actually a junior sister, but since she had been flat-chested since childhood, and it was indeed more convenient for her to travel through the martial world in men's clothing, she gradually came to be known as a junior brother. According to Lu Qingyu's speculation, the gathering place of the White Sox sect was very likely to be within a mountain city that had not been flooded. Compared to Duan Yun, who was quite unfamiliar with this area, the 3 of them were much more acquainted with it. And in this region, there weren't many such towns. Lishan City was one of them. The 3 headed straight toward the city gate when suddenly, Lu Qingyu stopped in his tracks, turning to look at the woods to the right. In the woods, there were several men and women. They were huddled in the forest, some making a fire, others sleeping. Seeing their appearance, Lu Qingyu wondered, disaster victims? So he waved his hand and led the 2 disciples over to ask about the situation. The moment they entered the thicket, the daylight grew noticeably dimmer. Lu Qingyu found that there were far more disaster victims in the woods than he had imagined. Deeper in the forest, throngs of people stirred, numbering at least a few hundred at a glance. Why don't you seek shelter in the city? Lu Qingyu asked a woman nearby. What kind of nonsense are you spouting? If there was room in the city, why would this lady be here nursing? The woman was nursing a baby, feeling that this person lacked insight and began to scold him. However, at that moment, she suddenly noticed the sword in his hand, and her tone suddenly softened. She spoke gently, replying to the hero, the city is too crowded now, there's no place for us. In fact, since old Demon Duan began to act the hero and young hero, had almost become words of insult in Yun State and Yu State. However, these commoners weren't martial world denizens and weren't aware of this. Lu Qingyu believed he had high self-discipline in his kung fu, and eventually didn't kill the nursing woman and the baby in her arms because of this. Yes, their main focus today was still old Demon Duan. After the woman answered, she walked backward, trembling in fear, talking to someone halfway through. Lu Qingyu pondered, the city is filled? After a flood, disaster victims will indeed flow into relatively safe towns, and it was understandable that Lishan City would take in many more people. But did this look like a situation of overcrowding? He looked in the direction of the city gate, only to see that the rather small gate was slightly ajar, with no one coming in or out. There must be something strange about this city. The White Sox and old demon Duan might be within. Lu Qingyu warned his two junior disciples. As the eldest disciple, he had always been the most astute among the Huangshan Six Swords. At this moment, the two junior disciples moved much closer to him and said, "Eldest senior brother, there's something odd." It was then that Lu Qingyu realized that the disaster victims in the forest were slowly surrounding them, forming an encirclement. A robbery? This was the first thought in the three's mind. Sudden uprising incidents where disaster victims harm and rob others are common. But if the victims had found them, they had purely chosen the wrong people. Or rather, they had chosen the right ones. Lu Qingyu remembered that the last time they happily used living people as targets for swordsmanship practice was 3 years ago. The few siblings had only slaughtered a village of 256 people, and their swordsmanship had even improved a level, only for their master to severely punish them. That damn old man. If it weren't for the fact that he had his eye on his favored junior sister Chaning and the charming master's wife, Lu Qingyu might have harbored resentful thoughts. So how could he not be excited by these many people suddenly appearing for him to slaughter? Third junior brother, fifth junior brother, you know what to do, right? Last time it was the three of them practicing together. They practiced the Huangshan Sword Sect's 3 Talents Sword Formation, and the full name of this formation is 3 Talents Slaughter Sword Formation, which is particularly thrilling and satisfying when slaughtering people. At that moment, the three of them also noticed that among this group of disaster victims, there were some with a strong foundation. But so what? No matter how many of such pests came, they were nothing but chopping vegetables and slicing melons. Buzz! The swords of the three were already unsheathed, but in the instant of unsheathing, the disaster victims in front suddenly launched an assault. No weapons, only bare hands and fingers that looked plain and ordinary. But the moment these fingers struck together, the colors drained from the faces of the 3 Huangshan Sword Sect disciples. In the martial world, there is an extremely fearful hidden weapon known as Rainstorm Pear Blossom Needle, with descriptions of blood must shed upon its presence, returning empty promises ill omen, urgency among urgencies, the king of hidden weapons. For a time, aside from the Tang sect's treasured Skyfire 36 consecutive, which was not circulated outside, it indeed was the king of hidden weapons. Several famous martial world experts died under this hidden weapon. It is said that this hidden weapon was forged by a mysterious craftsman, and when the Rainstorm Pear Blossom Needle was completed, the mysterious craftsman also perished on the spot. Some say that the craftsman who created the king of hidden weapons was already struggling mightily, exhausting all his energy and ultimately succumbing to death from overexertion. Others say the hidden weapon itself was ominous from the start, devouring the life of its creator. The Rainstorm Pear Blossom Needle could be launched 14 times. Within 5 years, 10 renowned martial artists died under its assault. After that, the Rainstorm Pear Blossom Needle disappeared. Some say it was destroyed by a righteous hero who deemed it an inauspicious calamity to the martial world, while others say the Rainstorm Pear Blossom Needle could only be fired 10 times and with the craftsman dead. No one else in the world could replicate or repair this king of hidden weapons, hence it naturally faded into obscurity. Of course, many believe it fell into the hands of someone even more sinister, lying in wait for the right moment to claim more lives. The Rainstorm Pear Blossom Needle was ominous, mysterious. Eyewitnesses who had seen it take lives described its appearance as if it were a fleeting splendor between heaven and earth, unavoidable. And the fingers being struck out now gave the Huangshan 3 swords a similar sensation. Lu Qingyu, with the highest cultivation among them, had the quickest reaction. He didn't hold back at all, his true qi roiling within. His cultivation in the Tongyu realm allowed his true qi to flow as pure as water, and he unleashed his most proficient killing move, Huangshan Peak Return. As the elusive sword intent emerged from the sword body, it took a sudden turn and became extraordinarily heavy, like a mountain. The afflicted refugees in front were directly shaken to death, succumbing to violent ends. Yet eerily, even though some had their heart meridians shattered by the sword qi, and were already dead, their fingers continued to strike out fiercely. It was as if their sole purpose in life, from birth to death, was to unleash this one strike. The sword chi buzzed, became doubly solid and profound like an abyss, and this time, many dead people's fingers shattered. However, there were still fingers that slipped through and attacked. Clang, clang, clang. The fingers collided with Lu Qingyu's Qingya sword, ringing clear and sharp. Lu Qingyu backed up 5 steps but managed to guard his vital points. But then, a cry of agony arose. Third junior brother. His junior with weaker cultivation was struck by 7 or 8 fingers, instantly spitting blood and falling to the ground, unable to rise again. The weakest among them, the 7th junior, who was in fact a younger female disciple in disguise, was wounded but barely managed to block the attack. In the blink of an eye, relying on his robust true chi and sword skills, Lu Qingyu killed over 30 people, but he had no time to catch his breath as another round of bizarre fingers struck again. This group of refugees seemed to have no fear of death, stepping over the bodies of their peers to attack once more. Lu Qingyu was in pain and had to grit his teeth to withstand it. He intended to retreat to form an angle with his 7th junior, but then a shrill scream pierced the air. In the last bout, the 7th junior had defended against over 30 fingers, but this time he failed to block even 10. It wasn't because he was wounded, but because this time the attackers were wearing white socks on their toes. These toes didn't seem much different from the previous fingers, but the pressure they applied to her was magnified. 2 of those toes stabbed straight into her nostrils, so she flew out like a kite with cut strings, her nosebleeds splattering like torrential rain. The white socks retracted their feet. One with a smile remarked, "Told you this one was a manly woman. But she's too young," another quipped. As a woman in disguise, Huangshan Laoqi blocked the men can't see, but was almost helpless against women can't be seen. Meanwhile, Lu Qingyu, the sole survivor of the Huangshan sword sect, remaining upright after 2 rounds of men can't see, was indeed formidable. Alas, after the 3rd round, he too collapsed, foaming at the mouth, body convulsing continuously. The Huangshan 3 swords had been taken away, and the bodies of the dead white socks had been cleared. These refugees went back to cooking, chatting, and dozing off in the woods, as if nothing had changed from before. High in a large tree, the one-eyed green dragon monk watched the scene, sweating from his forehead, and said, "Master, this white sock sect is too bizarre." The weakest of the Huangshan 3 swords was at the peak of the Qi realm, on the verge of entering the Tongyu realm. In the martial world of Yu State, there is a saying, together, the Huangshan trio could slay a demon grandmaster. In 6-man formation, they could leave no survivors. This signifies the potency of the sword array of the Huangshan sword sect and is precisely why the Huangshan 6 swords are notoriously dominant. But this time, they were defeated by a group that looked like mere underlings from the White Sox sect. The abbot of Taishui Temple sat, nodding as he said, "This finger technique and toe skills that prevail against the seemingly stronger, it's indeed one of a kind in this world." The Huangshan 3 swords didn't even have the chance to set up their sword array before they were defeated one by one. A true pity. The one-eyed green dragon monk said, "Then, master, with the lesson learned, you shouldn't have any problems, right?" "What problems?" "Delivering salvation to these white socks." "Who said this old monk wanted to deliver them salvation? Didn't you say you wanted to deliver salvation to both the White Sox and old Demon Duan?" The old monk sighed and replied, "For every foot of Buddha, there's an inch of demon. If this old monk saves these White Sox outside the city, what about those inside? And the one controlling the White Sox from behind? It's like fighting with fists against a myriad of hands. You see, old Demon Duan knows how to judge the situation. Claiming to be the first to arrive upstream, yet he still hasn't shown himself. Given the chance, this old monk should rather deliver salvation to that shameless, timid demon." The one-eyed green dragon monk looked at his master, momentarily lost for words. "If you're scared, just admit it. Why the needless talk?" At this moment, he suddenly exclaimed, "Someone else is coming!" On the hillside, a group of sword-bearing women in white approached, looking chaste and composed as if emanating an ethereal aura, heading toward Lishan City. Chapter 138. Bloody Battle. The Invincible White Sox and the Chivalrous Jade Girl. In the forest, the White Sox dealt with the Huangshan Three Swords and once again reverted to looking like ordinary people. If they hadn't caused trouble, you could have infiltrated and lived the life of disaster victims with them, and probably wouldn't have noticed anything unusual. But if you had seen how bizarrely and fearlessly they dealt with the Huangshan Three Swords, you would definitely think they were the most terrifying demons in the world. The White Sox thought so too. They were very confident, not only because of their doctrine but also because victory after victory, which shocked others, established the foundation of their confidence. Watching one famous figure after another fall at their white-socked feet, how could these seemingly ordinary people not feel excited and proud? The divine sect is invincible. The White Sox were immersed in the joy of victory, aware that the three they had just defeated were no ordinary people either. Although they had lost some brothers and sisters, so long as they were under the light of the sect hierarchs Holy Jade and the White Sox, even in death, they would be reborn in their homeland, smelling the fragrance of the Holy Sox. And just then, a group of women suddenly arrived. These women wore white clothing and carried swords, looking very feminine. They seemed to be from a swordsmanship sect that only accepted female disciples. Leading them was a round-faced woman, who looked quite sweet. Zhao Deli had never imagined she would have a sweet day. Before devoting herself to the heroic venerate and practicing Jade Sword True Understanding. She was just a down-and-out fat man, often called a fool, whose wife ran off with a coachman. But who would have thought? Whether it was her devotion touching the heroic venerate or her own overflowing heroic spirit, her practice progressed rapidly. Whether it was the speed of turning into a sweet, round-faced woman or the speed of practicing the Jade Sword True Understanding, she was a bit more powerful than her fellow sisters. The heroic venerate gave her strength, allowing her to trample her cheating wife and the coachman into mush and to feel the heart of chivalry. The sisters of the sword sect all knew, the more they believed in the heroic venerate and acted righteously, the more their practice would accelerate. They regarded the heroic venerate as their life. Whoever the heroic venerate wanted to kill, they would treat as mortal enemies, even if it was their own parents. Yes, this group of sisters even had more faith in the heroic venerate than in the great sect master and second sect master of their sect. The former Zhao Defa, now Zhao Deli, arrived in the forest and showed a portrait of Duan Yun to a group, asking, "Have you seen him? Have you seen anyone wearing white socks?" The White Sox pretended to be clueless, and one of them asked, "Fairy sister, what do you need him and the people wearing white socks for?" "He is our sword sect's heroic venerate Duan Yun, also known as young hero Duan Lang, formerly named Morong Fu. Those who wear white socks are his enemies, and we've come to exterminate them all." Ever since practicing Jade Sword True Understanding, Zhao Deli felt much smarter. Whatever she thought of, she could say instantly without struggling for words. On hearing her words, the White Sox showed an encircling stance. Over 300 White Sox quickly surrounded about 100 Jade Girls. From a high vantage point, this 100 Jade Girls looked as if they were trapped in an iron barrel. One-eyed Green Dragon Monk sighed, "They are about to be devoured by the White Sox again. Sister, something's not right." Suddenly, one of the Jade Girls spoke. The Jade Girls reacted, and swords were drawn out one after another. The White Sox, seeing the sword-wielding Jade Girls, foolishly laughed. "We are the White Sox." Almost simultaneously, the encircling White Sox eyes suddenly became cold and merciless, like a life and death judge who would decide people's fate. And then they made their move. Shoes were cast aside, revealing one hairy or smooth white silk leg after another. Their toes carried a strange force, with an ultimate rhythm, attacking the group of Jade Girls in the center. Though caught off guard, the Jade Girls did not just sit and wait for death. Some pinched sword fingers to shoot out sword chi, others swung long swords and slashed out water moon sword energy. However, in the eyes of the one-eyed Green Dragon Monk and the old monk, this seemed in vain. The Huangshan Three Swords had fallen, and their cultivation and swordsmanship were so much higher than this group of women. Keep in mind, against this kind of toe skills, having more people was of no use, because the White Sox were strongest when they banded together. The next moment, cries of pain and screams from the Jade Girls rang out, but unexpectedly, the screams of the White Sox were no less than that of the Jade Girls. The group of Jade Girls were fearlessly crazed, and even if they fell to the ground from being struck by finger technique, they could still shoot or slash out sword chi in retaliation. The outer ring of Jade Girls fell, with sounds of flesh and bone breaking, but the encircling White Sox also suffered significant damage, with thighs flying askew from being cut by sword chi. At this time, the White Sox expressions changed. Their special move, Women Can't Be Seen, was not only fast and fierce, but mainly it could disrupt the inner energy of women. Even for a Tongyu realm master like the Huangshan swordsman, once their energy was destroyed, it was akin to defeat. But the strangeness of the women in front stood out. Their energy was only slightly affected, as if they weren't women at all. Could it be the opposite of being flat-chested? These were actually men disguised as pretty boys? Change. The White Sox understood each other's thoughts, and their transformations were extremely fast. The next moment, they released the Men Can't See finger strength. Rows of fingers, like overwhelming waves, attacked the Jade Girls. Sisters, embrace Sparrow Tail. Zhao Deli's face had just been twisted by 2 toes, but she remained unnerved, crazed in her expression. Chapter 139. Jade Sword True Chi Sword Out, and Old Demon Duan's Dharma images appeared one by one. From the trees, they looked like demons that had abruptly arrived in the human world. One-eyed green dragon monk was so frightened that he nearly fell from the tree, because he was all too familiar with the faces of these Dharma images. As one of the few survivors under Old Demon Duan, this handsome face was deeply etched into his mind, often appearing in his dreams at midnight, and he would wake up somewhat damp. Only at this moment did the one-eyed green dragon monk realize that this was indeed the Jade Girl sword sect created by Old Demon Duan. For a time, finger strength and sword chi crisscrossed, and both sides engaged in fierce combat. Logically, only those martial artists approaching the Tongyu realm could manifest Dharma images, but Old Demon Duan's Jade Sword True Understanding allowed the Jade Girls in the Chi-Si realm to achieve this step prematurely. Due to realm limitations, these Dharma images were naturally not perfect, such as the arms extending the embrace Sparrowtail could only emit sword chi from a few, and were somewhat clumsy. However, a Dharma image is still a Dharma image, no matter how imperfect. It's still capable of overpowering martial artists of the same realm, and even those a level higher would struggle against them. Actually, this Jade Sword True Understanding shares a similar ingenious principle with White Sox, Men Can't See, and Women Can't Be Seen, both prematurely elevating cultivators to heights not naturally theirs. The White Sox quickly changed tactics, deploying Men Can't See, but this time, it turned out even worse than the last. The Dharma images resembling Old Demon Duan emitted streams of sword chi, penetrating even more of them, while their finger strength damage was even worse than last time's. Women Can't Be Seen. Are these creatures men or women? The always victorious White Sox suffered a setback, but still held the advantage in numbers. Even if they couldn't significantly affect the ambiguous energies of these individuals, their finger strength and toe strength were ferociously powerful. The White Sox and the Jade Girls quickly clashed fiercely. The battle turned excessively brutal for a time. The wild sword chi toppled the wild trees, while the nylon-clad feet of the White Sox kicked through the tree trunks, the chaotic battle creating wind gusts like a tornado, causing the vegetation to sway wildly. At this moment, suddenly a male voice rang out. Young hero Duan is in the city, about to be killed by the White Sox. What? Upon hearing this, the Jade Girls almost leaped up. Heroic Venerate is in trouble. Sisters, charge. Instantly, the eyes of the group of Jade Girls reddened. As if going berserk, their aura surged tremendously. Behind the Jade Girls, the Dharma images of Old Demon Duan boomed and grew a foot taller. Some of the Jade Girls who hadn't previously manifested Embrace Sparrowtail suddenly had Dharma images appear behind them. The situation turned sharply, and the White Sox, originally holding a numerical advantage, were suddenly suppressed by the Jade Girls. For a moment, the White Sox bled profusely. Their clean and translucent white socks quickly stained red. These typically victorious White Sox even until death, couldn't comprehend the situation. Their eyes filled with confusion. They weren't afraid of death. Previously encountering the Huangshan Three Swords, they lost many brothers and sisters, but they feared dying aggrieved, dying without understanding. The White Sox inherently restrained all men and women, but at this time, it seemed like they were instead restrained by this group of women. What exactly was happening? One-eyed green dragon monk stood beside the old monk, momentarily powerless to criticize the master, who just roared falsely that old demon Duan was going to be killed. Master, your efforts in delivering salvation are weak, but your enthusiasm for intensifying conflict is strong. For a moment, blood flowed like rivers outside Lishan City. The Jade Girls, infused with the Dharma images of old demon, stepped on the corpses of the White Sox, recklessly charging towards Lishan City. Heroic venerate needed them. Huang Feihong was still hung in this dungeon. The White Sox didn't kill him, perhaps because he was handsome, or perhaps they wanted to use him as a toy, or maybe just purely wanted to torment him for fun. In any case, he wasn't dead yet. It must be said, the White Sox had quite a skill in torturing people. Even his old clamp tools were somewhat unbearable. This time, the door's light and shadow changed, and another new captive arrived in the dungeon. 3 men appeared, all unconscious. Wait, on closer inspection, Huang Feihong noticed one uncertain of gender. The 3 were quickly hung up, like pork being sold in a butcher shop, somewhat comical. However, Huang Feihong couldn't laugh because he was hung in the same manner. This time, those who brought these 3 men were still the tall one and Shorty. Then, the tall one took out a plaque from one of the hung men, muttering, Huangshan Sword Sex Lu Qingyu. Hearing this name, Huang Feihong's expression changed. This was the first of the Huangshan 6 swords. At this moment, Shorty looked over and said to Huang Feihong, So these are the Huangshan 6 swords you were talking about? I only knew these 3 swords were very ordinary. Huang Feihong took a good look at their physical features, and indeed, they were 3 of the Huangshan 6 swords. Thus, the 3 swords were captured. The tall man and Shorty, upon seeing Huang Feihong's astonished expression, couldn't help but reveal a disdainful smile. This smile was a disdain for the entire martial world of Yu State. Even though he was quite resentful, he had to admit that the Huangshan 6 swords were indeed famous figures in Yu State, and their reputation had been growing over the years. But who would have thought? White Sox, oh White Sox, really mysterious and terribly fearsome. At this moment, the captured Huangshan 3 swords were slowly regaining consciousness. The moment he woke up, Lu Qingyu struggled but found himself unable to exert any strength. His acupoints were sealed, his chi mechanism disrupted, and he had also been drugged. This time, he truly suffered a major blow. At this point, he heard the cries of his 7th junior. No, this crying should be referred to as his 7th junior sister now. The 7th junior sister was the worst off. Her nostrils had been enlarged quite a bit. This experience of being captured was their first encounter, and the frightening thing about such an event is that the first time might also be the last. Perhaps what they just saw was their last glimpse of the sun. They had never imagined encountering such an ordeal. Always walking by the river, how can one not get their feet wet? In the martial world, very few people are undefeated and very few end well. Lu Qingyu had thought about his own defeat, but definitely not like this. Being defeated by a group of nameless minions was even more frustrating than failing to kill old demon Duan. It's all because of old demon Duan. If I hadn't gone looking for old demon Duan, I wouldn't have come here, and if I hadn't come here, I wouldn't have met these strange people, and if I hadn't met these strange people, I wouldn't have been strung along like this. Old demon Duan, I will kill you. Thinking that all of this was caused by old demon Duan, Lu Qingyu became extremely agitated and began ranting. In the martial world, Huangshan's first sword, Lu Qingyu was definitely considered a master among the younger generation, and Huang Feihong had always held him in high regard, otherwise, he wouldn't have used him as an example. But looking at Lu Qingyu now, where was there a trace of a master? Indeed, a renowned master falling into the hands of seemingly ordinary opponents was tough to defend against. Release me. I alone can chop down 1,000 of you. But, I just want to kill old Demon Duan. Lu Qingyu's eyes reddened as he spoke. At this moment, even the two white socks found it strange, and Shorty couldn't help but ask, "Did we make you like this? Why are you so intent on killing old Demon Duan? All of this is old Demon Duan's fault. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have met you, and if I hadn't met you, why would I be here?" Lu Qingyu said, looking almost crazed. He took a breath and then said through gritted teeth, "I just want to kill old Demon Duan. Let me go. Old Demon Duan is targeting you. I'll help you kill him. Don't you just love to see a dog eat dog?" Shorty then looked at Huang Feihong and said, "Huangshan's 6 swords. This must be the sword leader, right? Is this it?" Hearing her say this, not to mention the other two from Huangshan's sword sect, even Huang Feihong bowed his head. The leader of the Huangshan 6 swords, wanting to be the dog of White Sox. The reason Lu Qingyu behaved like this, aside from truly hating old Demon Duan to the bone and believing that old Demon Duan had ruined him, was also because he knew he was no match for those bizarre White Sox. Yet against old Demon Duan he might have a chance to win. At that moment, the tall man walked over and slashed at him with a knife. Lu Qingyu's body stiffened, violently trembling. At this time, one could see his eyes burning intensely with emotions, yet they quickly became empty and hollow. At that moment, the tall man casually threw away his item and said, "Now that I've castrated you, who do you want to kill?" Chapter 140. You worthy to think of killing old Demon Duan? Now that I've castrated you, whom do you wish to kill? Faced with the reality that he was truly castrated and his brothers were thrown aside against the wall, Lu Qingyu's eyes revealed both hatred and emptiness, and with a sob, he said, "Old Demon Duan. It's still old Demon Duan. Ah. Even now, you still don't want to kill us? People from you state really are suitable to be pimps," said the tall man with a loud laugh. Huang Feihong never imagined that Huangshan's first sword would be such a person. Compared to him, he was just a minor character. A very inconspicuous minor character. But at this moment, he couldn't help but laugh, saying, "Do you think they will spare you just like that? They are just playing with you." Then Huang Feihong lowered his voice and said, "If you ask me if you really want to kill old Demon Duan, you might as well learn his cultivation technique and turn fallen. At this point, it hardly makes a difference whether you are fallen or not. Maybe if you learn his technique, you might have a better chance of killing him." Lu Qingyu's eyes flashed coldly, but Huang Feihong stood his ground, saying, "Why are you glaring at me? Was it I who castrated you? Turns out some people who dare not provoke White Sox only know how to be fierce towards their own people in you state. If you ask me, you're not even a match for a single hair of old Demon Duan. Yet you dream of killing him. Ah." At this time, Shorty, who was sitting there eating and drinking, couldn't help but laugh joyously. "I just love watching you dogs bite each other. And that so-called old Demon Duan is nothing but a dog that we can cripple any time. You people from you state and Yun state, all are useless. Ah. Ah." Both the tall man and Shorty burst into laughter. Had it been earlier, Huang Feihong would have thought they were petty people overstepping their bounds, underestimating Yu State and Yun State's martial arts. But now, faced with reality, he sadly discovered that if Yu State's martial world couldn't unite, they might really be beaten down by these White Sox. But how could the various sects in the martial world, with their minds full of worldly fame and profit, not fight among themselves till heads flew? How could they unite? At that moment, hurried footsteps came from the prison. "Protectors, something has happened." A man rushed in anxiously. Shorty, while picking up food, said nonchalantly, "What's the matter? Just speak freely." There came a group claiming to be followers of heroic Venerate from the Jade Sword sect, and they have slaughtered our people outside. What? Both tall and short got up anxiously. Jade Sword sect is a sect created by old Demon Duan, Shorty said seriously. Ever since hearing about old Demon Duan from Huang Feihong, the White Sox sect had looked up information about this demon overnight, so they quickly realized that this sect was a follower of old Demon Duan. Old Demon Duan might have come. After that, Both the tall and short hurriedly left the dungeon. It was then that Huang Feihong realized that these two women of White Sox sect had been disguising their true capabilities. Their real cultivation levels and statuses must not be low, which is why they dare to take the initiative to cut off the bird of Huangshan's first sword. But now his mood had improved a lot, even slightly excited. That was because the Jade Sword sect made the White Sox sect suffer. The group of mad women who worshipped Old Demon Duan massacred the White Sox sect. At this moment, Huang Feihong couldn't help but look towards Lu Qingyu, whose face was deathly pale. Though he said nothing, the meaning was clear. Huangshan's three swords not being a match for White Sox, and White Sox being inferior to the Jade Sword sect created by Old Demon Duan, it was obvious who was the weakest here. You can't even defeat the White Sox, yet you fancy killing Old Demon Duan? You think you're worthy? Impossible.
Absolutely impossible.
That bunch of mad women from Jade Sword sect, who only learned the basics, how could they possibly be a match for the White Sox? It's fake. It must be fake. In a moment, Lu Qingyu felt as if the sky was falling. How could the world become so strange in less than a day? The White Sox that even he, Huangshan's sword leader, couldn't handle were slaughtered by the Jade Sword sect recently created by Old Demon Duan? No. His eyes staring blankly, he sneaked a glance at his groin, feeling like he himself was also very strange. Am I still the sword leader of the Huangshan Six Swords? This world must be fake, unreal. It must be a nightmare. In an alley of Lishan City, Duan Yun came to a rice shop. The rice shop had already closed because there was no rice to sell. At this moment, one man and two women were sitting inside, their relationship unknown. Duan Yun walked in and said, "You all, show me your legs." Frankly speaking, it's quite unreasonable for a man to say such a thing to others. Especially to women, it seems even more frivolous. But perhaps because he appeared upright and handsome, the two women and one man did not refuse his request and slowly lifted their trouser legs, revealing their legs. 3 people, 6 legs, no white socks. Duan Yu nodded, his left hand attracting a fat woman wearing white socks and his right hand an old man in white socks, kindly proceeding to the next house. Behind him there were bloody footprints. Seeing such a person, the shopkeeper of the rice shop and his wife and daughter were nearly scared to piss themselves. Couldn't help but shiver. "Shopkeeper, what was he doing looking at legs just now?" The shopkeeper's wife asked in fear. "Don't ask. Don't inquire," the shopkeeper of the rice shop decisively said. Selling rice for so many years, the shopkeeper knew that since the flood, the whole Lishan city had changed. It was no longer controlled by the bird and snake gang, but rather by a mysterious power. Yes, the rice shop's shopkeeper was a thinker. Since childhood, he desired to be a divine catcher, had read many stories of divine catchers including those about the goddess catcher. He often indulged in imagining himself solving cases, thinking he was quite capable. Unfortunately, contrary to his wishes, he didn't become a divine catcher, but inherited his father's business and became the shopkeeper of the rice shop. If he had still insisted on chasing his dream, he would probably have starved to death. Reality is that brutal. However, years of self-imagined case-solving indeed made him more perceptive than others. He not only noticed that Lishan City was controlled by a mysterious power, but also speculated that a new force would come and conflict with this mysterious power. The power struggles for interests, dog-eat-dog, were nothing new. At this moment, the shopkeeper saw the handsome man had reached the middle of the alley. On the ground, there were fresh trails of bloody footprints and corpses. The handsome man looked at people's legs and simultaneously killed them. In just a short time, 6 people were killed by him. At this time, the shopkeeper's wife couldn't help but tremble and asked, "Why is he killing people?" Their daughter speculated, "Maybe he kills whoever's legs he doesn't like." The shopkeeper's wife was too frightened to speak. She knew some perverts liked women's legs and demanded women wear various socks to satisfy them. But to hear about someone killing just because they disliked someone's legs was unheard of. This is just too terrifying. At this moment, the shopkeeper's daughter suddenly said, "Grandfather has no legs, will he be killed?" The family became extremely anxious, as the old patriarch was in the front house, having had both legs amputated due to illness years ago, becoming disabled. Duan Yun found his way to Lishan City, and after killing 3 dishonest White Sox on the city walls, he entered the city. Afterward, he commenced an intense inspection of legs. Whoever was from the White Sox he pointed out one by one, ruthlessly killing them clean. Lishan City was already under the control of the White Sox. White Sox hid among the crowds, easily launching assaults. But it was already the 4th assault, leaving only a pile of their corpses. The leader responsible for these 2 alleys even had a ridiculous illusion. That was, they were being surrounded by this one man. At this time, Shorty and a tall protector came out of the prison, rushing towards the city gates. Outside the city, several hundred White Sox had been disastrously killed, which was beyond their expectations, so they needed to hurry to eliminate all the sons of old demon Duan. At this moment, someone suddenly stood in front of them and said, "Show me your legs."